You are now listening to Tribbles and Ecstasy, a production of Holosuite Media. Tune in to our live show every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
This is Admiral James T. Kirk of Federation Starship Enterprise. Your presence here is an act of war. You have 2 minutes to surrender your crew and your vessel, or we will destroy you.
Admiral Kirk, this is your opponent speaking. Do not lecture me on treaty violations, as this broadcast is intended for mature audiences. In the following podcast, there will be thoughts and opinions expressed that in no way reflect your Federation, this station, website, or affiliated partners.
Who is this? How dare you?
Who I am is not important. Listener discretion is.
Klingon bastard.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Tribbles. Her ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new content and new stuff, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Another night of Tribbles and Ecstasy. Hey, 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 hey! Hey, 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 hey!
Hello and welcome to episode 248 of Tribbles and Ecstasy. I'm your host, Midnight Shadow, and joining me in the studio today, we have got...
I should probably apologize and warn everyone about the zombies and the werewolves and the vampires and everything out there, but if you see a black cat, you're dead. Just you're dead. It's sun, everybody.
Look, I can't see anything outside in that snow. I can't see zombie. Why would zombie be outside? Or cats? Cats would be under the snow. Bad luck for them. It's me, Stu Dog.
I don't know about any of you guys, but it's starting to get warm here in the middle of winter time, and I just don't like it. What's up, guys? Timberwolf here.
It's getting so warm, it's turning up to 30 degrees. Hey everyone, it's Geez here.
Oh.
Ah ha. Joke on Fahrenheit versus Celsius. Ah. Because in Fahrenheit, 30 is below freezing.
Well, if you
Lol.
said minus 40, it would have been the same in either one. Anyway, on to Star Trek Online news. So, events. We have got next weekend. We've got a bonus experience weekend for Star Trek Online PC. And next weekend we have also got research and development weekend on the consoles. So, yeah. Remember to get in game. Okay. Some of the big news for the PC is Season 12, Reckoning. So this will be released on January 26th. So we've got a lot of stuff coming out. Basically, this is Cryptic's 7th anniversary, and this is when the season will be released. So it's as they say, the new chapter in their story. It's only being released at the moment for PC on January 26th. Xbox One and PlayStation 4 will, of course, be at a later date, because they still have to get all the other sort of seasons to sort of be caught up with as well.
But At
So-
midnight, some of our own people have asked in our chats, what happened to the extra Agents of Yesterday content that was supposed to be coming? Well, let me give you that answer. You see, this has actually happened quite a few times before, and each time that extra content, that commitment to continuing the story is content is as in released in the Fleet cosmetics. Nothing else.
I know, I have to admit, I got a bit disappointed when you told me that. Because I was assuming that they was going to bring out. I was assuming that they was going to bring out some more content to do with Agents of Yesterday, considering what they'd already brought out.
Yeah, they've done it before. They have this, carrot on a stick thing where they lead people and say we're committed to exploration and we're committed to this and that and the other. Oh, by the way, here's a new war arc. Shove. That's just
Another
the way
war?
Cryptic operate. Yes, another war. Time with the Zenkethe.
I don't want to fight no more.
Well, unfortunately, most players do.
I was trying to number crunch earlier, and I was calculating the amount of ships that the Federation could have lost compared to the amount of wars that they've been involved in.
In the space of a year.
In the space of a year, that's right, Stu. And I think it's only my ship that's left.
Yeah, I think literally our perspective characters are all that's left of the entire fleet, and we're just holding it together and using photonic forces to bolster ourselves.
So, yeah, season 12 will have giveaways, mini games, 2 new space queues, new R&D system category, and a new featured episode called The Signs and Portents. So, yeah, we have had Zombie, who hopefully may be able to make it later on in the show, but won't be here for the Stowe segment. Has actually released a small comment. Of course,
Do you want me to take that one away?
If you could, because I've not had a chance to look over any of it, because I've literally just got home, so...
That's fine. Zombie sent us this statement earlier today. The 7th anniversary event is typically referred to as a grindiversary on the forums. Now, why is that? To understand that question, we need to actually understand what is grinding. Grinding is defined as digital technology in a video game to perform a monotonous task repeatedly in order to advance a character to a higher level or rank. The source for that is dictionary.com. I interpret this to mean that you do a repetitive task to progress your character in some manner, and repetitive is the key word here, doing the same series of content over and over again to accomplish the goal of progressing. So what can be done about this? Some of the answers is to change your goals. It's a requirement of the game to get the stuff, but it is something they want you to get. Therefore, stay in the game. But that is not a good answer because it doesn't really address the issue, just moves what you will be grinding. For me, to change the grinding feel will require some changes in the game content. Before I go any further, I want to make it clear that this is my opinion on this, and all references to how others feel is all based on anecdotal research and direct interviews with a limited subset of players in and out of Stowe. Do not take anything here as actual scientific research. It's merely an opinion piece on a personally perceived issue within the game, and ways that could be taken to change the issue in my perception. Grinding comes from repeating limited amount of content. All MMOs have this problem. To me, the best way to combat this problem would be to increase the amount of content that can generate the marks to complete reps or to gain the set pieces. This would require that they create more side story missions to expand backstories or expound upon story threads left dangling. In many other MMOs, they have main quest lines that you can do, and that will get proper story they are telling. All of the rewards that is necessary to progress, and everything you need to know to compete in end game content. They then do secondary quest lines or side quests that fill in some gaps in the story to flesh out the world, or even just to tell a story that has nothing to do with the main storyline and isn't important enough to get its own expansion, but is just interesting or funny enough to make enjoyable gameplay. Stowe has developed a main storyline that you can progress at a decent pace. It gets you all the necessary rewards that you can play the end content. It doesn't really do a good job of teaching how to play the end content, but I'm not going to get into that here. Stowe really doesn't have side quest. They really don't explore other NPC backstories or galactic events that are not tied to the main storyline. Sorry, I just lost my place for a second there. And the main storyline has multiple dangling story threads that could have been pursued and cleaned up in these types of side quests. Doubling the number of quests that provide progress will extend replayability, increasing the amount of time it takes to feel grindy by at least 50%. These side quests don't have to be very difficult things. There could be missions to kill X number of Vaudwar, and then you're rewarded 5 or 10 Delta marks. They can be more complicated when you have to visit a number of systems in a certain period of time, or you could even get it to be real complicated by saying they have to complete a particular queue in a particular period of time, or without taking hull damage. These side quests could even make you do things like go to one system, collect an object, fly to another system, and fight with some pirates, and then deliver the said object. The options are open, and the ability to vary them is great, but it also means that they would need to change their view of missions, make place for them in the interface, and create all this content, including the delivery system for the experience. But if you increase the amount of content that helps you progress, you directly increase the time it takes to make progress feel grindy. Another way to decrease the grind would be to make all the current PvE queues and have them reward any mark you choose, and then change the amount of currency you receive based on how often it's played by the metrics. What I mean is that they, Cryptic, have the ability to pull reports on how many times a particular PvE queue is run. Have those rewards least amount of currency, say 50% of the current amount, and the ones that have not been played will get 50% more. If they don't publish which queues are getting altered, this will force the player base to get out there and look for the queues that don't get played often, varying the content and reducing the repetitiveness of the game. This will greatly reduce the grind for months for those that participate in the change. When they add new content, they can keep it at the normal level for a month, or at the 50% increase level artificially for at least a month, to give the new content a reason to be played by all players. My third way that I think Stowe can be changed is by creating a base currency that can be used to purchase the marks for the rep system, and then you can have an exchange rate based on how new the content is. So the newest marks are purchased at a 1-to-1 ratio, while previous ones can be a generic 2-to-1 specific ratio. Then they can set the rest further down. It makes all the queues then relevant to run, but then the easiest queues will get run the most. It might make the grind reduced for as much as percentage, I think. so I don't put much stock in this method I present, because it would be easiest to implement of my suggestions so far. Events like the anniversary, winter and summer events and such are good as grinds because they are around for a limited time. They're expected to be a bit grindy because you're going to do a limited amount of content for the limited amount of time. Grinding has its place in these kinds of content. Other MMOs do that with these same things too. The difference between those MMOs and STO currently is that STO has grind as prevalent and prominent method of content. They have a limited number of missions, which forces you to play the same stuff over and over again and get the progress you want to have. Other MMOs avoid the feel of grinding by creating a large amount of repeatable content, delaying the feel of grinding by months because the sheer volume of varied content is harder to reach that burnout stage. All of these options are doable and manageable even with small teams. There are multiple small teams for smaller MMOs that do deliver on just this experience. It's really just a mindset, vision, and setting of expectations. That was the feedback that Zombie sent us earlier on today.
And remember, Zombie is out killing people because it's Friday the 13th, so I'm glad he got this to us.
So that's who's standing outside dressed up like a clown.
No, Zombie doesn't do clowns. He does Pyramid Head, though.
Now, this time, when it comes to the anniversary event, it isn't actually just an event mission. We've got a whole season release. I think this is the first time they've actually released anything like that on their anniversary.
At least it seems that way. It is quite a bit for an anniversary. The past two that I've been a part of, it's just been a mission, and like one mission, you've got Q's minions on Starfleet Academy, the giveaway, and then the Omega Particles.
Yeah.
Which the Omega Particles are the grind.
Which
you have to play that minigame.
Well, quite honestly, and this is a theory that me and a couple of my friends have come up with, we honestly think that they are going to put a time gate on the Omega Particles. Just because there's other options out there that are giving technically a better boost when it comes to the tech upgrades. I mean, we've got the Keyring bundle, where you get that upgrade that's instant Mark 14 Epic, and then now you've got the Phoenix boxes that'll probably do anywhere from 2 to 4 rotations a year. And considering that it's well known that people will just do those for hours and days and all that, it's a theory that we hope doesn't come to pass, that they might put a time gate where you can only do X number of Omega Particles per hour or something along those lines to try to limit how many people have. Because I know from the past few years, some people have just done that, and they have tens of thousands of each of the fragments and the little traces and everything. They just have entire bank tunes full of them for those tech upgrades.
This is again, this is one of those. Okay, you wanted to sit there for an insane amount of fucking time to get all of those little things to do that. Okay, good on you. Stop screwing with the normal fucking players by making the shit locked away. This is why we go over this. This is why I have the problems I have with them changing the currency every year on the events.
Well, as I was saying, it's just a theory, but it's just been wording as far as what's been coming through with a few things with new content and everything. It just seems like it's a theory that could happen, especially considering how they've got other ways to get these tech upgrades that more or less are just as good, if not better, and they're more profitable for the company, is what we're thinking, is they're trying to make a shift more towards the Keyring bundles and the Phoenix box tech upgrades versus having all these omega techs.
Yes, we'd rather that you go for something that you could potentially use real world money to buy them, rather than
Again,
going in to
great
get
way
the
to
free
lock
stuff.
out your player base, Cryptic. Wonderful.
Well, like I said, I'm hoping that it's just a theory that we're wrong on, but there is that possibility.
But the thing is, you say it locks people out, but it's a way to attract people to come into the game for that period of time, which is like every event. So, and the thing is there are some people who will keep grinding in one particular year and then go next year, actually, I don't need to go do that. So that's why it's done.
But there are people who do that anyway, whether or not they have the things to do that or not.
Yeah.
Case in point, the summer event where I said, I kind of don't want the Ferengi ship. I'm not going to do the summer event.
But that's the thing, they're never going to please everybody.
It's not about pleasing, it's about making it available. And when you lock shit away, especially if theoretically we're locking away tech advancement across the board for people who don't have the money to go and buy keyring bundles or loads of dilithium from Zen so they can shove into a Phoenix box, you're locking out whole parts of the player base.
I wouldn't call it locking out. I just think it's another opportunity people can get to get different types of upgrade.
Yeah, in all honesty,
you can call it whatever you want, but if a person doesn't have the money to purchase those other upgrades, then being blocked from getting the one upgrade they can reliably get every year makes them hate the people that they're playing with.
But that's the thing. All they need to do is spend time in game to get the dilithium to convert it into Zen. There's nothing stopping them from getting the other stuff at all. That's the thing with Star Trek Online. It allows you to do that. Other games don't. Other games like Star Wars The Old Republic, unless you do subscribe, you're locked out of huge amounts of parts of the game. Literally, it's almost impossible to actually progress unless you are not free to play.
Well, I think they on Star Wars as well. They actually lock your experience or cut it in half.
And it's just saying that they're blocking it out for people. It's just like, sorry, no. You spend time in game, you can actually get the dilithium to get anything you want.
Yeah, and that dilithium usually gets spilled into a reputation before anything else.
But it doesn't have to. If you want to go for something, you then go for that. You can't always get everything. Same in life. You may get a bit of money, but you can only get one thing that you want and not everything.
So we're supposed to avoid. So let me ask this then: are people who are supposed to look forward to the next opportunity? Say this does go into place, and at the end of the entire event, people will only come out with one or two of those Q Omega token upgrade tokens, one or two, because of the lockout system. Just at the end of the entire event. When the next reputation comes out, when the next expansion comes out, and the next fleet holding comes out, how many people do you think are going to withhold their dilithium from the system just so that they can upgrade their gear?
But that's what I've done. There's been times, there's one Omega event, I didn't get in at all.
That's the point exactly. That's the point exactly. Cryptic likes to complain on both ends of the fucking stick. Well, people aren't doing this thing that we want them to do, but we locked off this content so that they'll go over there and buy the thing instead of doing that content.
But the thing is, they're not going to have it available all the time. They've got stuff that is available if you pay for it. They want to drive people to that. So they're only going to have it on a special event.
let's look at the other end of the scale as well. So they've started throwing these recruitment events out every now and again, right? So let's say another one comes along this year, and it puts like newer players that have just came in who don't have this yet. The second you get something from a rep system, it's Mark 13 Epic or whatever. And then there's the fact that with their Phoenix boxes, the prices of superior tech upgrades have plummeted. That was one of my main sources of making income. Now it doesn't make that much. So general run-of-the-mill tech upgrades have become cheaper. So there's isn't a massive problem here. And then they'll probably have another recruitment day thing, month, whatever. As much as I don't want to see a Section 31 recruitment, let's just call it that for the banter and the jokes, that they'll put something onto it. Like if you do this, that, and the next thing, whenever you produce an item using your crafting system, it'll automatically come out at Mark 13 Epic.
Anyway, go on, Geese, you were about to say something.
No, I was just thinking about what you lot have said. I mean, I can understand all of your points of views. To be fair, coming as a player from, starting off not putting no money into the game, purely getting stock ships and so on, and upgrading and not upgrading. This was way before upgrading was there, but get basically just taking what the game offers, and then obviously because I like the game so much and so on, I got to a point where I thought to myself, well, should I put money into it? And then I started putting money into it, and then I started buying like the ships that I wanted to buy, and then I went back to trying to take what's coming out of the game again. In terms of obviously as a player, I don't want to be locked out of content. I don't want to feel like certain content that I would like to progress with is like beyond my reach. We're going back to the Star Wars argument. The reason why I don't play Star Wars as much is because the free to play isn't accessible to free to play as far as I'm concerned. They lock you out of a lot of stuff, like you said. And if STO was the same, where it locks me out of the majority of the content, then I probably wouldn't play it. Because going to what Sun said, as much as I want to play the game, I haven't got however much to spend on Zen all the time. I was having this conversation with Stu earlier about, well, it's diverting a little bit from what I'm saying, but I'm a PC player, and then I move on to the console, and then do I want to pump more money into getting the best ships and that on the console? Do I want to be a lifetime subscriber on the PC, as well as being a lifetime subscriber on the console? And it's a lot of money to give away, but then at the same time, do I want to spend maybe 2 months grinding, getting a dilithium, getting less Zen because of the exchange rate and so on and so on, so personally I would grind it, purely because obviously dilithium is easy to get. However, the use for dilithium now for everything, fleets, upgrades, whatever, it's like you you get dilithium and then dilithium goes, so it's about getting that balance, I think.
Well, it goes back to one of the arguments that a lot of people still have is to up the refinement just a little bit. Because you can make the argument that, if you have a certain subscription, you can do an extra 500 to 1,000 every few days. But with the sheer amount of projects and fleet projects, and now the Phoenix box, which the Phoenix box changed the game when it came to the usefulness of dilithium, considering what's available in the Phoenix box for its price. 8,000 dilithium refinement a day, when people can have, at this point, millions of dilithium that still needs to be refined, and it could take them years to refine it. 8,000 a day, or 9,000 every third day, is kind of on the very low scale. Like you could up that a few thousand And while it wouldn't be that much, having 12,000 refined a day would at least help a little bit better with some of those projects than 8,000. I can understand it when you hardly had a use for it, when there was very limited dilithium sinks in the game, but now there's literally so many with 6 fleet holdings and the Phoenix box and upgrade systems. If you really want to get it, the only way to really get that much refined dilithium is to literally open up your wallet and pay for it through Zen and convert it. Because I could play queues all day long, all week long, save up all sorts of unrefined dilithium. It's still going to take me weeks before I can contribute everything I need for just one fleet project. And what is it, like a tier 3 fleet project for an upgrade could take 2 million dilithium, 3 million dilithium, depending on what the project is.
Or all these people that go about saying, yeah, I have this fleet where I just created it for myself as a bank fleet. What about the crazy idea of just having a capability of putting unrefined dilithium into fleet projects?
Yeah, that that right there alone would be helpful. Maybe not up the refinement, but at least make a use for some of the unrefined. If you've got that much unrefined and it's going to take you that long to refine it, and if you're looking at if you're just a free player and you've only got access to 8,000 a day, okay, to do one reputation gear piece from, like, say, Iconian, you want the Iconian shield. That's 4 days and some change of refinement before you can get the shield. For all 8 pieces, you're looking at around 17 days. Okay, that's fine, but then you've also got to refine dilithium for fleet projects. You've got to refine it if you want to buy Phoenix Tech boxes. If you want to upgrade that shield, if you were lucky to have an Agents of Yesterday tune, it's Mark 13 Ultra Rare when you unlock that particular add-on. If you didn't have an Agents of Yesterday tune, it's Mark 12 Very Rare. You need dilithium to upgrade it so you can get more usefulness out of it. And then there's the fleet. But giving you the option unrefined dilithium for the fleet, yeah, I agree with you, Stu. That would at least help. Because then you could still use your refined dilithium for your projects and your upgrades. Your unrefined, you could throw some of that at a fleet project to help out.
I absolutely agree with you, Timber. I mean, going back to your original point, well, your first point, shall I say, 8,000 a day. I could cry if they increased that. Literally cry, right? Because 8,000, no matter what people say, my opinion is just not enough compared to what's out there now. When you've got the likes of dilithium overtaking EC and gold press platinum doing nothing, it's you need to do something with it. And then, like you said, with the amount that you have to put on projects, sometimes hundreds of thousands, or I think the average project on a PC is 20,000 dilithium plus duty officers or whatever. To get 20,000 dilithium for 8 a day, you're looking at least, like you said, 3 to 4 days worth of grinding, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, that's just I'm saying 4 days and some change. It's 32,500 dilithium for a shield or a warp core. Well, that's 17 days if you want the full 4 piece, or if you're piecing together 4 different pieces. That's not counting if you want the special weaponry that also comes with it. That's an additional 2 days of dilithium right there per piece. Some of them are 3-piece sets. Some of them are 4 pieces. That's not counting if you want some of the ground gear. When it comes to the weapon, the armor, the shield, some of the newer ones have actual kit modules that you can throw in. So reputation alone can be a fairly big dill sink starting off for the average player, just to get the gear that they see everybody else using, because they're told, hey, this is great, or hey, try this out, kind of deal.
Yeah, but see, this is where I believe the failing of the dilithium fleet holding is most prominent, because they may have not had it at the time, but right now, considering they're quote unquote going back and upgrading all their old content, this would be the perfect time to take the dilithium fleet holding and make it so that, yeah, you could knock off 100 or 200 dilithium that the player receives in unrefined dilithium and change those values into a, oh, here, by the way, because you did this for the fleet, here's fleet refined dilithium vouchers.
There's another option.
I like the refined idea. Sorry, not the refined, the unrefined. You know, like you said, if you instead of having the hassle of converting it into refined, you know, just pump it into the fleet straight away. You know, it goes there like EC, and you know, be done with it. Really.
Yeah, and
I
then
mean,
the voucher could be used since it's fleet refined. That's what you could use to buy fleet consoles, or if you're going for one of the old school builds, fleet shields, or you could go for fleet weaponry. But it's there because it's specifically fleet refined.
yeah. I mean, you know, I'm playing on the console now, and I haven't pumped any money into it, and I'm already looking at the content out there and the ships that are obviously in the C store that I'd want, but it leaves me pretty much no option other than to put money into the game because I'm wondering whether I get later on in the game whether the stock ship is going to be enough to handle it. You know?
Yeah, and it's honestly why I have not played console. I was starting my own series on console for a while there, and trying to keep up with both of them, I couldn't do it. I simply couldn't do it, especially considering once I got to I think level 55, I realized what kind of work I was gonna have to put up just to get remotely close to where I needed to be with a free starship in order to make for sure I would be good at in game. Not counting, hopping on and getting an event ship or throwing out even more money to get a C store. I mean, that's the reason I stopped. It was like I've already made an investment in PC. I can play for free every so often on console, but it's going to take a lot of effort just to get there, considering what it's going to take you after level 60, at least 60 more levels just to get a secondary and a primary specialization so that you have, both of those to help gear you up, and then you're hoping for, what little you can get for traits and abilities.
Well, let's also remember, if you don't put anything into the system, you can't send anything through the mail because that's a I've paid money to Cryptic unlock. If you don't have the account, if you don't put money in, you're not going to get the account bank unlocks. So if you have multiple characters to grind stuff on, you're just SOL about exchanging money, exchanging goods to get stuff where you need it to go.
And I don't know if you're gonna agree with me, G's, on this one, but I think that's where console got hurt when it comes to the monthly subscription. Because for PC players, you do the monthly subscription. I'm one of those people. You get 500 Zen every month. What you get. From my understanding, you don't get that because it has to do with the PlayStation Network. That's their kickback. You don't get Zen unless you get the lifetime. So you could sub to it for a month, and you're getting bonuses. You're getting the 100-day, 200-day, and all that. But the Zen bonus that PC players get that you could use to get your account unlock bank, to get a little bit extra dilithium or maybe a few keys, or save up for that C store ship, that's not existent in the console from what I understand, from what I've seen. And that can be a crutch, or not such a crutch, but a disability when it comes down to it, because you're not getting what someone that's subbing on PC would get.
Yeah, I half agree. I mean, I'm like you. I started out on PC. You know, I subscribed on PC. I get the 500 Zen per month. When I switched over to console, I purely only did it because it was a free to play game and Star Trek, and I played it on the PC and so on and so on. But when it first came out, they was pushing forward the lifetime subscriptions, trying to get people to subscribe as quickly as possible, probably to get the money in and so on and so on. I haven't looked. I got to be honest. I haven't looked too much into detail with the whether they get 500 Zen or not. If going by what you said is true, which I have every reason to believe it is, then yeah, that's a massive kick in the teeth. I mean, I looked on the January sales for the PlayStation Store because obviously I'm on a PlayStation and I'm assuming it's pretty similar for the Xbox, but don't quote me on that one. And they was actually, because of the PlayStation Plus, they was actually lowering the price by, say, for instance, 10% to buy Zen. So say, for instance, if you bought Zen for $69.99, which give you 11,000 Zen, it was actually like 65 or 64.99. But that was purely through, I don't know whether Cryptic had done something with PlayStation and to allow Sony to do that, or but it just goes to show that the console gamers are getting a bit screwed really when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, I mean, now if they were able to somehow figure it out, and I could, like I said, I could be wrong about this. I have not played console in a few months, just because between PC version and the other games I play in real life, it's kind of a every so often kind of thing for me now.
Yeah.
But just giving them that little bit of Zen, I mean, hell, you could even give them half the amount the PC players get, and yeah, there would be QQ and all sorts of pissed off people. But just even a little bit of Zen to the console players, they could save that up month to month, and that's what they could use to invest in the game. And then, they're not spending any money, but at least they're getting some kind of investment through that way for their monthly. I don't know. I've always been like this. Let's make for sure if we can give the players something they're putting into it. It doesn't have to be much, and that's why I like the giveaways that they've done on PC. Those 2-3 day giveaways where you get the starship upgrade, or what was one of the last ones. We got the Tier 5 Excelsior refit. Those little things are nice little kickbacks saying, "Hey, thanks for hanging around. We're gonna do these 3 giveaways this year, and yeah, you might have already gotten these items from years past, but the new players can get them and they can enjoy them as well." I just wish a little bit more was done right now for consolers, because like Sun said, they're still waiting for Agency yesterday, and that is a huge thing when it comes to what Agency yesterday can give a player. When you look at the bonuses, you're getting a decent starship trait, you're getting a decent space trait, you're getting boosts to Admiralty.
In a way, I'd actually say the Delta recruit gave a lot more than Agents of Yesterday.
Well, the reason I'm saying the temporal recruit gives you more, because it gives you duty officers as well, that's part of the system, that are worth anywhere from 20 to 100 million EC on the exchange. And they're giving them to you for free by leveling up the duty officer assignments. That alone right there, that's something that Delta did not do for free. And that alone is worth it in my mind more than Delta. Delta had its own niceties.
Yeah, Delta came with a lot of marks and a lot of dilithium and things like that.
Like the big one that stands out to me is when you got to the next to last tier of your duty officers. I'm about to unlock it on my temporal agent now. When you got that next to last tier of the missions, I believe it's leveling up 3 of the DOF schools to level 4, I think it was. Don't quote me. I'm not looking at it right now. You got at least 3 or 4 very rare duty officers, one of which was basically a Groggamal clone, which, for those that might not have gotten Groggamal, it turned track beam repulsors into a pull. Instead of them pushing the targets away, it pulls them to you. Well, Groggamal on the exchange, last time I looked, was anywhere from 30 to 50 million EC by himself. They give that to you on your Agency Yesterday tune for free if you level up the schools. And they're giving you like 1 or 2 others on top of that. And they're giving you Admiralty ships. what was it? The agency yesterday thing is what gives you the upgrade for your reputations, the reputation special projects, where the moment you upgrade all the reputations, your projects go from Mark 12 very rare to Mark 13 ultra rare. And that is a huge dilithium saver when it comes down the road. Because then you just got to get them to Mark 14, and you've already gotten your rarity upgrade for free, as well as one level for free. And that'd be something that would help the console players to have agency yesterday for those level of boosts. That would help them tremendously. I don't know how they would figure out how to get Delta to them, and I don't think at this point they could reasonably get the Delta recruit system. That might be something console players do not get. But I know agency yesterday would be a huge boost for them.
Yeah, see, I did a little bit of research based on what we said last time, because last time, last podcast was a really quite a good discussion between obviously console and PC, and I don't really want to get too much deep into it again, but the episodes, well, the block that I could play up to now on the console is actually future proof. So I can go through the Iconian War, I can go through obviously the usual ones where the Borg, the New Romulus, and so on and so on. And then obviously where it stops is future proof, and like you said, there's no mention of Agents of Yesterday or things like that. Going back to what you was talking about just a minute ago, you're right. They've put the game out on the console, and I understand they've put a large chunk of content, probably say 30-40% of the content compared to the PC now. Well, just an estimate, but they've put the content on there, and they've basically said to players, right, here's your game. Now you've got to give back to us by pumping money into it as much as you can. They gave us when it came out on the console, they gave us like the Andorian ships. They gave us one free Andorian ship, if I remember correctly, and then obviously a chance to buy each faction worth of ships and so on and so on. But to me, it was still a case of let's take as much money as we can from the console players and give nothing back until they announced that they was doing the bonus XP month, which again could be a gimmick to bring a lot of players to the game, but also level them up quick enough so that they can play the game quicker, if that makes sense. But playing on the console, I still don't see where, like, unless I'm a hardcore Star Trek fan anyway, so I'll stick at it. But if I was just a casual player, for instance, and I didn't really know nothing about Star Trek, I could possibly find it boring. And is that the kind of direction that they want to go? And going back to what Sun said about holding content, they definitely don't want to do that on a console.
Yeah, it's something that definitely holds games relevant on console. I can agree with you there. I mean, you see any game when it first comes out, they already have, a lot of them nowadays have season passes. And that isn't just a term that you see with Call of Duty, that's something you see with all of them, where they've
Oh,
pre-announced content more or less for its entire lifespan, which is normally nowadays, what, a year and a half? And for hardcore players like us, we've learned to wait. We gotta wait. Like right now, my guess for console is they're waiting for the Reckoning Season 12 to hit PC. Once it hits, and they've started to flesh out some of the bugs, that's when they can refocus their efforts on console. But at the same time, the console players, the casual ones that have come into the game because STO's on console and they can finally play it, they're kind of twiddling their thumbs, going, all right, I'm gonna go play Doom. And while it's been a big draw, and I get they're trying to get extra revenue, some players are gonna get bored. It's just gonna happen. I mean, granted, it happens on PC all the time for a lot of us. It's an eventuality, but I think console players, they get bored quicker. And that's not a negative against them. It's just they've gotten used to more regular and more frequent content updates and patches for their games. And that's just a norm for them. So if it's not under the set pace they're used to for anything else, and they're coming into this expecting, okay, it's going to be on a typical console gaming release, they don't see that, they do get bored quicker. I mean, it's something that you see with anything else. Or PC, we can wait years for an update for any number of games or patches or anything like that before it's actually there and fleshed out. I think it just goes to the player base that you're trying to deal with when it comes to PC versus console.
Definitely. And Gone Astray on the 09 on the Twitch channel said that a lot of games like Destiny, even the season pass doesn't cover most of the extra content. So, I mean, I agree with you. They sell the season passes with games now, because they already know that people are going to buy into like both, both the game and the season pass because they know that content's going to come out. Obviously, STO's not like that, and they've done really well to stay open for 5 years 5 years or more on the PC. Well, 7 years now, isn't it, on the PC?
Yep.
But
Yeah,
like I
7 years
said,
now.
yeah, so I had to get my figures right there. But going back to what Sun said, I don't think the direction is to restrict the player base that they've got. I think it's more. I mean, they should make it a little bit easier, but not too easy. So it's just about getting that balance right, really.
Well, talking about balance, I think we should go back to talking about what's coming for season 12. So, we sort of squirreled off a wee bit.
Oh, that
I'm
happens.
Yeah, just every now and then. Only for a little bit, though. Anyway, so yes.
So, did you guys hear about who are coming?
There's in Kathy.
They're coming.
Now, this had a bit of a discussion in our own group about who owned what and where, because the Zenkethi were mentioned in, I believe, TNG and DS9, although we never ever saw them.
Yeah, they were referenced, during the Adversary at the end of Season 3 of DS9, and it was just the Federation Zenkethi War because they were headed for the Zenkethi border. I'm not sure when they were referencing TNG.
Yeah, I remember when I was in game, somebody had mentioned that they were actually talked about in TNG as well, but I've not had a chance to.
Because the biggest reference I've ever seen is when it comes to the novels, especially when you go into the Typhon Pact series, because the Zenkethi are part of the Typhon Pact, and that's when they're describing the tear-shaped starships that they have, with if they have weapon ports that retract. So you never know what kind of weapons the ship has until they retract the ports and actually extend the weaponry. And those have been the big references I've ever seen, is in the novels.
And then they went on to use the tear-shaped reference again in the fourth blog from the Tales of K-13.
Yeah, kind of making it sound like it was an older starship design for them.
Well, on the topic of starships, we've also been told what the Zenkethi starships will look like.
And surprise, surprise, we have these ships that look scaled similar to these little crystal things we found on a planet that was proto-matter bombed a week before we arrived.
Well, it's not only that, they use apparently proto-matter weaponry as well.
Yeah, it's definitely different, and they're looking to use this proto-matter stuff quite a bit, because it seems to be mentioned in sort of the missions that we'll get to.
So it's going to be a type of plasma. Got it.
But yeah, definitely be interesting to see where they go. But the ships themselves, I do like the fact that the detail of like the texturing and things like that and what they came up with. They're very sort of dinosaur-like. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I'm looking forward to.
Yes, because the one thing we don't have enough of in Star Trek is lizard people.
Well,
Oh yeah,
son, here's the thing. When they showed the drawings of the Zenkethi on the ground, to me they don't look like lizards. They look like the Mancubus out of Doom. And maybe that's just me. But that's what they look like with their armor on. They look like the demon that has twin flamethrower rocket launchers attached to their arms.
The Voth with their armor on don't look like lizards either.
Yeah, I know. But they look like lizards to me. I don't know.
what the ship reminded me of a little bit was actually the Ori ships in Stargate, except it hasn't got the sort of empty back part, but especially the front part, the way it's shaped and things like that remind me a little bit of the Ori ships.
One of those ships reminds me of a hammerhead.
The Dreadnought. It reminds me of a hammerhead as well.
Mm.
But it's like, statistically speaking, there should be more sentient plant and aquatic life in the galaxy than anything. Just from the standpoint of, for carbon-based life to exist, there has to be two key factors in that evolution, one being water and one being plant life.
Food and drink.
Right. So from a statistical and even if those carbon-based life forms are wholly carnivorous, they will have to have eaten something that was herbivorous to naturally gain all the associated minerals and stuff that propel life forward. Period. So statistically speaking, there should be more plant life that is sentient and aquatic life that is sentient than we've seen in the Star Trek universe as a whole.
Well, I for one am not interested in plants. That's just going to really do my hay fever in.
That's I mean, that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point. You have an entire plant species who can release spores like the Orion females release seduction pheromones.
What we're going to do, go along with sort of weed killer.
Why not? We got radiation damage.
Weed killer turrets. And
yeah, why
not? I mean, here you have the perfect opportunity to have plants, plant people with proto-matter weapons. Think about that.
So what you're saying is after
of all life, the life we think of as most susceptible to damage from anything is plant life. Plant life seems to be able to die the easiest to humans and around humans. And here this is plant life with weapons that can turn around and wholly kill us, but yet they have the scientific know-how to keep it stable, mostly because they have to.
Well, the issue with a lot of plant life is plant life tends to always just feed off the energy from the sun. And if you're in a spaceship, yeah, you can't exactly get all those conditions.
Well, those crystals were for them to grow teardrop-shaped starships out of, because those are what were those? What were those things that were growing? Oh, crystals. What if the refraction of those crystals is so great they can actually amplify even the smallest bit of light from any star almost at any point in our galaxy?
Because if they went that way, then if they built a ship, they could do a bedroom where it'd have a little bucket like Odo for them to sit in so they could get water themselves.
Well, I guess something to put their feet in, maybe. But I mean, remember the cruise ship, the
Ryzen.
Yeah, the one that's got the big windows on it. You know how it's got the changeable interiors. What if you are floating around in space fighting these things, and all of a sudden you notice that ship's not just purple, there's a whole bunch of green inside of it. They have gardens inside those ships. Well, duh, they're plant life.
It would go to the same factor of technology as Zindi Aquatics.
Right.
Pretty much their entire starship was filled with water because they had to be underwater, so they would have to have the technical know-how to be able to filter out toxins, regenerate the oxygen in the water for them to breathe, and be able to have it stable to at least take some damage before it popped. Maybe not a lot, some. It They would have to have similar technological levels to the very least. It would be plausible.
How annoying and almost Borg-like would it be to have a plant to have this plant species with crystalline starships that, because of the way the crystal is formed, grown, and made into a ship, not only does it absorb light to make and to amplify that light inside the ship, it also absorbs your energy weapons to make light.
It would be the perfect thing for your restorative initiative. Your new reputation shields would absorb a portion of energy damage taken to bolster shields or bolster your own energy output. But at the same time, I would want that for one reason. I would want the Borg to assimilate it so that the Borg would walk around with the little flowers growing out of their head, because that would be funny.
That would.
What
But
if
as with
And now they would have to have photosynthesis built in for their energy source. So they have to just, like, hold on, we can't assimilate you yet. Let's absorb the sun. Okay, yoga pose 1. And then they have to just sit there and absorb the sun. That would be funny.
you hack open a Breen and like inside his refrigeration suit he was just like lettuce and tomatoes and stuff?
Well, for anyone who is interested in learning more about the starships, the link, of course, will be in our show notes for you to go and take a look and to have a look at specs. So, because they had the specs in this one, didn't they?
Not the specs on them. They were mainly talking about the design, how they came up with the design and showing off the various types: the dreadnought, the assault cruiser, the cruisers, the frigates, the fighters, science vessels.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think they're going to do quote unquote stats until they necessitate a lockbox, which, going on every other enemy we fought recently, eventually we'll have a lockbox on it. I'm just using previous data. The Iconians were the big bad that we fought, and eventually we had a lockbox where you can own Iconian ships. So that'd be the running theory. The Nakul, the same way. We fought the Nakul, now we have a lockbox for them.
Yeah, Gone Astray 09 said in chat, I am Groot. Resistance is Groot.
There you go. That's perfect.
Well, now we've just had the big Iconian War, the Time War and stuff, and the only ship left is Giza's ship, so we could all jump on that and go and fight the Zenkathi, whilst Midnight, you can go to New Romulus with like an axe and a shovel and dig up plants and chop down trees and throw down weed killer.
I think that's a plan. Then we'll put the weed killer in my cargo hold and use it if we need to, in case any sunflowers come out or, I don't know, roses jump at me.
Well, one of the other things that has been announced this week is the fact that we're getting a new battle zone. So, now this looks that it is a space battle zone.
It is.
So, yeah, to be honest, after I saw the information about the Zenkathi and all the armor and stuff like that for their ground things and the little mechanics they've got, when I saw Battle Zone as the title, I thought, oh, this will probably be a new ground one. And then, of course, I opened it up and it's like, oh, no, it's a space one. So, but yeah, given the amount of work they've done on the Zenkathi for the ground, I do wonder if they'll also have a ground battle zone that'll be announced later.
Well, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I mean, their precedent for it would be Dyson Sphere.
Yeah. Because they
yeah,
had
but it's
that.
going to be adapted for some other enemy later. That's the precedent, though.
Well, they always try and use the tech they've got and to develop it further, so yeah, I'm sure that will be. And you never know, it might be for plant aliens. But yeah, the battle zone is due to be for level 60 characters. And yeah, I haven't had too much time to look into this. Is this on Tribble yet? Do you know, Timberwolf?
What, the Battle Zone?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Battle Zone and the new queues are all on Tribble.
Have you had a chance to play in the new battle zone at all?
Actually, yeah, and from what I've seen so far, I mean, they did a whole play test today with the devs, but it's more or less finished. I mean, it needs some polish, especially when it comes to like the map and it's describing what each point is. But combat's already in, all the starships are in, the points are in. Tony Todd's voice is even in, so the voiceover has already been put in fully.
Cool.
For the queues and for this battle zone. So, barring some minor tweaking of the content, it's pretty much 100%, which is kind of new because a lot of times when they do this content debut this early, there's still some things missing, and icons missing or a voiceover missing. So, for them to have this much finished this early before the release, it means they've been working on it for quite a bit and focusing on it for quite a bit.
Yeah, well, one of the things we had raised, and I think including last week, is why there seems to have been such a gap between episodes and things like that, because people were saying we'd usually have had things a lot sooner and a lot more.
Which we typically have.
Yeah, and this seems to be why, is they've obviously moved up when a launch is going to happen to celebrate the 7th anniversary. Now, whether or not they've tried to make the 7th bigger than usual because it's usually only 7 seasons that 7 years that a Star Trek show will get, or because this is still the 50th anniversary. So, although to begin the 50th anniversary, we had Agents of Yesterday kick off to sort of celebrate the original 1701 and its crew. But whether or not because of course until September, this is still the 50th anniversary, that for their birthday, they're wanting to make this one big sort of celebration by adding a season for the release where there'll be the giveaways, and they'll have probably have the Omega stuff back, as well as the 2 new queues, the battle zones, and stuff like that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they tell us sort of we're going to be getting much more. Oracle Sybil says in chat there are 7 years on a Pomfar.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if we were just looking at getting one episode for our featured episode, it would have made sense. They would have already released it by now. Considering the amount of content they're wanting to put out with a season, there's going to be a featured episode, but more than likely they're going to go back to a few weeks at least from what we've seen in the past, where you get a featured episode as soon as it's done, the next one launches, that kind of thing. 2 queues, a space battle zone. Considering the artwork done for the ground personnel, possible ground battle zone. Not going to say that it's there, but possible.
Yeah.
You know, with all that kind of work, yeah, it makes sense why it's getting pushed off. Plus, we have the Lucari ship that launches at the end of the month with this 7-year anniversary.
Yeah,
Precedent that's been set is if, you know, the past two years, I believe it has been, when the anniversary ship launches, a 3-pack in the C-Store launches as well. So we're also looking at 3 other starships along with the anniversary ship launching on the same day for a 4-piece console set. And we don't even know what those are yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're obviously looking to make the birthday sort of big. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much further they sort of take it. But the fact
Can I
that we're
address-
still dealing with the Lakari makes me think there may still be some stuff related to Agents of Yesterday, because of all the stuff that's happened. Son, you were about to say something.
Can I say, Sybil? Okay, Sybil, just to throw this out there. 7 years, yeah, it's Ponfar is every 7 years. Okay. At this point, Star Trek Online has already procreated itself onto the console. And, as we all know, because Ponfar is a Vulcan thing, it's a logical thing, not an emotional thing. What is done in Ponfar is done purely out of logic and not emotion. Now, it may be because of the buildup of emotion, but what is done because of Ponfar is logical, not emotional. So they're not going to show us any sort of love. You can just eschew that right now.
Now, also just to make things clear, that the anniversary is for PC only, and that the consoles will have their own anniversary dates. So yeah, you won't be getting anything just yet for the console.
Oh, damn it.
So, but they're still catching up. So, because the console's been out now for 3 months?
Yeah,
Maybe
roughly
4?
about that.
Yeah. So, for only being out for a few months, there's a lot of content there. I must admit, I did expect it to launch with probably a little less content. I didn't think, with all the lighting changes and everything else, that everything was going to be as ready as it was, from what I've heard. So, and
No.
I think they're trying to get the rest of it up to spec quite quickly.
No, I think I was the same. I wasn't expecting as much content. I think last week as well, I even said that the missions went up to Stormbound when actually when I did a bit of research on it, it's a lot more. They've chucked in the Delta Rising and well, not the Delta Rising, but the Delta Quadrant in there, and a bit of all the Arconian sections. So yeah, still quite a bit in there.
Okay, so it sounds like console is probably a year and a half behind at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
So, because let's see, if you've got all the way up to the Iconians, that means you're literally just missing Agents of Yesterday, isn't it?
Yeah,
Pretty
that's the
much.
only one that's not on there, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, so yeah, that was only released. What was it, spring, summer, 2016? I think now. When was Agents of Yesterday?
Agents Yesterday was, I believe, July of 2016.
So yeah, it's only 6 months behind. So yeah, it's not doing too badly.
No, it's closer than we thought. But I mean, like, it is the question is obviously we spoke about it last week, but are they going to end up matching side by side, or like you've just said, the console players are getting their own anniversary compared to the PC players, and is the anniversary that the console gets different because of where we are in terms of the storyline and that compared to where the PC is, Questions.
Always.
So yeah, that would sound like a logic of at the end of the day, the sort of side by side will be 5 to 6 months if we work it on an anniversary style basis. So if the console gets our anniversary stuff on its anniversary, yeah, it's a 6 months difference.
Now, as well as the battle zone and things like that, we're also getting 2 cues. Now, one is called Gravity Kills, and the other one is called the Zenkathy Front. Now, Timber, you've actually been play testing these on Tribble, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
So, what are your thoughts on the 2 missions, without giving too much away for those that still want to sort of be sort of a little bit surprised?
Okay. How can I word this without spoilers? Um, they're pretty good. I was playing them on normal difficulties because there's been enough people on Tribble today to do pug runs on normal difficulty. So far, they're pretty good. Zenkathy Front is going to be pretty straightforward when it comes to what you're doing in the queue, what has to be done. Gravity Kills gives you a nice mixture of things you're going to have to do. Because yes, they are time gated. I will say that, but with the amount of stuff you're having to keep up with in Gravity Kills, you honestly don't notice the timer because you're not worried about the timer. You're worried about keeping up with this over here, this, and this over here at the same time, while this is doing this. And by the time you've kept up with it, you've kept it going, and you've completed the objectives, that's when the timer ends. So it almost feels like micromanaging, but the micromanaging is enough where it doesn't feel like it has a time gate, even though it does. I cannot wait to see it under advanced, just because of what all you do have to do in the frickin' mission, because there's a lot to do at the same time.
Now, in the Agents of Yesterday release, we had some cues there, and of course, one of them was with the Doomsday Machine, where of course we had a new mechanic where you had to pick up something and then move that along, which was of course continuously doing damage to your ship. Do we see any new sort of technology being invented for gameplay for these missions?
The Zenkathy Front uses a modified version of what you saw in Days of Doom. It's not a warp core, but it's similar when it comes to terms of completing the objective. So you do have that mechanic returning in a slightly different way. The big one for Gravity Kills, they stated in the blog, you're near a black hole, and they've made literally the gravity of the black hole become a mechanic you have to combat while you're in there. You cannot stay still while completing the objectives.
So it sounds like they may have adapted stuff from the Undine storyline when you're in fluidic space, because that had that sort of movement, but it looks like they've sort of taken that one step further for this mission.
Because with the Undine space, you just if you stopped in Undine space, you just kind of move back and forth, like it kind of floats you around like you're in water.
Yeah, or if you just turned off your engines, you sort of like keep going a little bit further, sort of thing, don't you?
Yeah, whereas with Gravity Kills, it literally makes the mechanic as if you're near a black hole. So if you park, let's say you like to use the trait anchored, so you like to park so you can get the anchor stacks for damage. Well, if you park in this map and Gravity Kills to get that damage, the black hole will start to pull you towards it, and it does get a little bit faster the closer you get. So to get to your objective, you're near the black hole. You're going to get there quick, but it's going to take longer to get back from it because they've actually made the gravity a mechanic you have to combat. So don't think you can just park in that particular map and do what you need to do. You're going to have to move. With testing on my Odyssey class, I'm using Epic Mark 14 Iconian engines. Half impulse facing away from the gravity well at the objective points. The first and the second objective point holds you in place. That's half impulse. At the third objective point, which you're a little bit closer, you're going to have to go probably about 3/4 impulse to stay still. So that's just something to be mindful for while you're dealing with everything else. If you park, you're going to die, and it'll give you a warning that if you actually get pulled in, you can sit there for a few seconds, and just like a real black hole, if you keep sitting there, it'll blow you up. You'll die, you'll have to respawn.
Yeah, just like real life. I mean, if you park your car in the wrong place, it will eventually get dragged away and crushed.
Yeah. Now, what they've added in with this is the moment you go all the way into the singularity, it'll give you a few seconds where it'll give you an option to warp out. And basically, it'll technically warp you out of the map and warp you right back in. It's not like you leaving the group or anything. It's just resetting you to the starting spawn point so you can start over again where combat stopped. So it's like a save button, but if you don't click it within a few seconds, it'll just blow you up. But it's like I said, it's something you're going to have to deal with. I accidentally, in the video I recorded for it, I had to warp out twice, simply because trying to maneuver, I wasn't paying attention. I got too close, and it was either that or blow up. But it's just something nice that you have to deal with in the background.
Wouldn't it be good that if in the Elite version, that if you got completely sucked in by the black hole, you couldn't respawn and you had to wait for the match to end?
Well, yeah, if you want to hear a lot of crying on the forums, yes, absolutely. But as a mechanic, I wouldn't mind that, because it's one of those challenges that's kind of needed at the Elite level anyway. That kind of, you've got one life on Elite. Like Advanced, whatever, you die, you respawn, you're good to go. With some of these newer ones, if we had the one life, if you die, you don't respawn unless the rest of the team dies kind of thing, or if it's one life. So if you die, now it's down to 4 until either they complete it or everyone else dies. And if everyone else dies, you fail the queue. You got to start over in 30 minutes kind of deal.
Yeah, well, what I would say is actually to increase that timeout, so people who die and then think, oh, screw it, I'm quitting out, that make that an hour or 2 hours to stop people from waiting for the rest of the team to try and achieve the thing. But if you do that, is to give a really good price or a really good amount of the lithium and marks and stuff like that, because it would have that extra sort of challenging. But yeah, I think if it came to the black hole, then yeah, it meant that you're sort of down and out for that type of sort of death.
Yeah, and it would add a challenge to it. It would add a challenge that's not there for any queue system out there, and to retrograde it to other Elite queues that are still there. Because it would change how people would build for Elite queues if they knew, okay, I can't die, otherwise that's it.
Yeah,
it would definitely change how they build.
Yeah, because you get a lot of these builds where literally everything is straight into the power for the weapons, which doesn't leave much for the shields or even engine speed for a lot of time. And if you don't get it right for, say, same with the black hole, where you've got all this drag and everything else going on, you could find yourself in trouble.
Yeah. So I would agree with that mechanic. But right now, like I said, that's just one of several things you're dealing with at the same time in this. And I like that mechanic. I like the fact that you're like, okay, I've got to deal with all of this crap. Oh, and by the way, I'm next to a black hole, so I got to make for sure I don't get sucked into it and destroyed. Like, that's a nice... It becomes an afterthought after a while, but at the same time, it's like if you don't pay attention to it when you're trying to move around, it's going to be, okay, I got to warp out or I got to die. So it's one of those little things that they added in, and most people are not going to think about it, because once they've seen other people play it and they've tested it out on Tribble, they'll know about it the moment it hits holodeck. It will not affect them, but it's a nice afterthought. It's a nice little thing they put in the background that will affect players. Just like with Zenkethi Front, a modified version of the Days of Doom Warp Core deal. It's similar, but it's different in a little way. See, I like Gravity Kills more than Zenkethi Front, because Gravity Kills had multiple things you're doing during the time gate, and then the gravity and all that from the black hole. Zenkethi front was kind of just straightforward. Like the moment you warped in, you knew what you had to do. It was done. And quite honestly, I didn't notice a time gate on Zenkethi front. It was pretty much once the first objective was done, the second objective was done, it was over. I didn't notice a time limit on it. It was just complete the objectives. So you might have one that's time gated and one that's not time gated when it finally gets released to Tribble.
But yeah, definitely seems interesting missions. Moving on. We've got season 12 Facebook live stream. This is actually on Star Trek Online's Facebook page, and this will be by multiple developers. This will be from 4:30 Pacific time on Friday 27th of January. Now, from 4:30 to 5 o'clock will be Michael Panov, who's lead artist, and Hector Ortiz, who's the concept artist. Then from 5 o'clock to 5:30, you've got Jadua Ross, who's lead designer. Then from 5:30 to 6, you've got the lovely Maria Rosso, who's producer. And from 6 to 6:30, or maybe even 7, it didn't give an ending time from what I could see, you've got the executive producer, Stephen Ricosa. They have clarified that they will be taking questions from the live stream. So you just need to head over to facebook.com/Star Trek Online Game, all one word. And yeah, you'll have the live stream direct to Facebook there. So, and knowing them, I'm sure they'll end up doing some sort of giveaway and things as well, possibly. But that hasn't been told. But I know when Trendy and Smirk and everybody else, Brandon's have done sort of live streams, they've usually given away something. So I'm sure they will do the same. So yeah, that definitely seems interesting. Of course, that will be on the same time as our show. So yeah.
Fight.
We'll have to get someone over there.
So yeah, got to decide whether or not we may start earlier or yeah, we'll sort something out. If not, it will be on at the same time. But I shall let people know if I decide to do anything different for those of our nice listeners who decide to join us live every week. So, patch notes. Of course, we had a patch on the 12th of January, which was yesterday. Well, yesterday for those of you still in the Americas. For those of you over here in the UK and Europe, then we're already into tomorrow. So,
Today is yesterday.
So is there anything in the patch notes that stood out to any of you guys as anything sort of noteworthy?
Main one that sprung out to me was the fixing of the ship separating and the separated ship just disappearing completely. That's one that I've heard has plagued a lot of players for quite a while. And then I'd also heard that it only seems to now be working on the multi-vector advanced escorts or the variants thereof. Like the tier 5 as well as the tier 6 one seems to be working, but people with Galaxy classes and Odysseys have problems with their Aquarius or Saucers just deciding to go off on holiday whilst they want to fight.
I've been actually having a problem that I've not been seeing in any sort of patch notes anywhere, and that's when I fire a torpedo. My ship continuously plays the warp in animation once that torpedo is away. Then it will
Okay.
settle, and I'll be back in space combat. But then, when that torpedo fires again, there's the warp out, or the warp in animation again. You know how the Borg used to react in Karat, where there was like the really elongated them warping in scene thing.
Yeah, the constant warp in, warp out.
Yeah, that's what happens to my ship when I fire a torpedo.
No. Now, the only issue that I've had is the one where I can't hand in quite a lot of EPOs. I've still got a lot of elders that I'm still trying to get rid of for some marks. So,
You and your Epo farm.
sorry?
You and your Epo farm.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I've got 5 or 6, which I can't do anything with, and it's just like, well, I don't want EPOs. I'm not their friend.
Yes, it was the lime green ones that weren't able to be handed in.
Not just lime green, it's also cherry and that as well, and there's some others. So there is a thread that is on the forums, which if you're having that problem, you can add to.
Yeah, but wasn't it the whole first week or two of the winter event in the first place? People weren't even able to acquire the cherry ones?
Oh no, it's all just random. It's just like people saying, "Oh, we're not getting cherry," and it's just like people are. I've got 4 of them. It's just a random pick of what you get. So some people just out of random chance may not ever get it, whereas some people could get loads. I, for one, well, just the ones that I couldn't hand in, I've got 4 of the elders. And I've got 1 or 2 of the limes as well. So, yeah, it's just luck of the draw. But yeah, hopefully they can do that soon. Because yeah, I would like to get rid of them, please. But yeah, I haven't heard of anything else in regards to that at the moment. Okay. So, console news.
Yep.
Did you want to go through the stuff that's happened for the console recently?
Yeah, no problem. Well, similar to the PC version, obviously there's patch notes for the console that come out on the 10th. These patch notes was, in my opinion, silly things. Apart from they resolved an issue where the UI crash that would occasionally occur when using the Admiralty system. They resolved a crash that occurred occasionally when changing camera distances. You know, silly things like that, really, just to patch up the game by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's just resolving sort of little bugs which they've been working on. So yeah, you've got, as you said, sort of the Admiralty system, the changing of the camera distances, message of the day for fleet holding names and stuff.
That's right.
So-
Currently, sorry, mate, go on.
So yeah, it just seems to be a small thing. So this is probably little bugs which they have been able to just sort of fix and roll out since they've got back from New Year's. So hopefully they're working
Quality
on
of
some
life
of the other.
things.
Yeah. So hopefully they're working on getting some of the other bugs resolved. What are the known issues that they've still got down for the console?
The known issues are as follows. Dun dun dun. Some maps are either too dark or brightly lit. Some icons in the Fleet Holdings UI are not correctly fashion faction. Sorry, can't even read now.
Yeah, don't go into
they're
the
not fashion
costume.
either, to be honest. Faction specific.
So what you're saying is you need to turn your lights on to see if something's the wrong color.
Pretty much, or you need your sunglasses on to go through section space by the looks of it. Or no, to go through the maps. Sorry, not section space. To go through the maps. So yeah, either sunglasses or turn the lights on. Take your pick. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
well-
Or go on.
When it comes to the stuff either too dark or too brightly lit, this is the same thing that we've been seeing on PC, where it's the changes to the lighting engine. There are still some things which are causing issues and not being able to see properly, or being way too bright that, well, you can't see properly.
To be fair, if it makes it look better graphic wise, then I'm all for it. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on, because that was quite a small patch note, to be fair. In terms of news wise, they're promoting fleet holding special unlocks for the console. There's currently a dilithium weekend where that runs from the 12th of January till the 16th of January. We've got I told you about research and development weekend on the 19th of January, so we'll probably talk about that more in the next podcast. And the Folian weekend is coming back, so that's something to look forward to in the future as well.
Okay. Cool. Alrighty. So, I think that's it for console news, isn't it?
Yep, that's it for console news. Till next time.
Alright. Star Trek timelines. Now, this week or next week, I can't remember which, Star Trek Timelines is celebrating their 1-year anniversary. I think it is
currently on right now.
Yeah, the event is on right now, but did anyone find out? Oh yeah, I'd actually got it from. Yeah, just opened up the timelines notes, and of course I'd put in from when it got launched. Originally, that it got released on the 15th of January 2016. So, yeah, this Sunday, the 15th, will be the full 1-year anniversary from the launch of Star Trek Timelines. And it's actually changed quite a bit, trying to think back to a year ago. Anybody agree or disagree with that?
It's changed some for the better. It definitely has more things in the Guardian of Forever when it comes to, hey, buy me. I think currently right now I'm loading it up. There's at least 7 or 8 things in there right now for the 1 year that are requiring dilithium, which for that game is a premium currency. Typically you have to use real life money to get that is in your store. And then there's the one thing in there that you can use your energy credits for. And then you've got your Dabo wheel for your one, if you're a free player, your one-time spend per day deal. But yeah, there's a lot of different things on there for dilithium. And the event is one of those community events. So I think last time we checked, we had gotten a Klingon Quark, we gotten multiple shuttle boost packs, and then we gotten Q's Choice, which is basically one of the dilithium options. And I think the next unlock is 2 or 3 of Q's Choice. And it's basically giving you a chance at a tier 4 or tier 5 captain or first officer, one of those things, like the cream of the crop, I guess, to Q kind of deal. So at least the community rewards have been good, because a lot of people do participate in this particular event because of the community rewards that you're given, because they can be really good.
Yeah, and I think while this is all going on, they've halved the required dilithium costs in some of the areas as well, especially when it comes to sort of the Dabo wheel and stuff like that, if I recall correctly.
Oh yeah, it's
It's also half of its credit cost as well.
yeah, it's what do they
Cool.
call it? It's a supply box, and it lowers that, and it also lowers the chronotons necessary to do the missions. So if you're doing missions for the first times, if you're doing the playthroughs, or the warp button, if you've gotten 3 stars on a mission, it's for a reduced cost when you're doing the missions themselves.
Cool. And of course, during this event, you can run squadrons. And yeah, they've got lots of little things they're going to give away depending on what level sort of people get to. Yeah, I haven't had much time today to sort of get in since they sort of started celebrating. Hopefully I'll be able to play a little bit when it comes to end.
You not have time? Preposterous.
I know. Well, the problem is I've really got to get my tax return done this weekend. So, and because of things happening at work, I've probably got to go into work on Sunday as well. So, thinking about it, maybe I won't have time to play. Oh, it's so unlike me. But yeah, one of the other things they have done in regards to celebrating their first anniversary is they're giving away 3 new crew slots, as Sunseal you mentioned a few minutes ago, I remember.
Yeah, and already filled those 5 slots.
Yeah, and as we said, half price on Dabo. You've also going to be able to get, when it comes to your avatars, Alpha 177K9. So you'll be able to select that now as well if you sign in.
That was a brilliant
But
piece of 1960s.
Here's the question. Here's the question. Does it stay, or is it go?
I think it would probably stay. So, but yeah, if you head in game, you'll have a little email which sort of tells you about what's happening. Is there anything else in Star Trek timelines that anyone thinks?
I'm just going to comment on the dog as a brilliant piece of 1960s engineering. How do you make an alien? Oh, get that dog, stick some bits of cardboard onto it, and you want to make it evil? Just poke it with a stick until it barks.
I do have to say though, if you're looking for your own queue, because you don't have a queue yet, you should probably be playing this, because at 3,000 personal whatever for this mission or for this event, you will gain a human queue as a character.
This is true.
And it's, relatively low on the list of reward achievements. So it is doable.
Okay, so yeah, for Star Trek news, there really isn't that much, except for our little sort of segment about this year or this week in Star Trek history. We had Star Trek Voyager Shattered. I think that was release date, isn't it? January 17th,
Yes,
2001?
air date was January 17th, 2001, so 16 years ago. Shattered was the episode where I think it was like a a form of time storm in space, and it shattered the ship.
Yeah, it's the one
And
where we get Seska back. We see the grown-up
s-
Icheb
yeah,
and
7 of 9
Naomi
is still
Wildman.
Borg and wants to go about and assimilate people.
Yep.
So Chakotay has this vaccine that allows him to travel about unhindered by time, but anyone else who intersects with the wall of the room or the doorway doesn't stay with him as he stumbles about from misadventure to misadventure, such as well, the main bridge is located at the launch of Voyager. So the second he steps onto the bridge, everyone's just like, "Hey, it's that terrorist we're after," and
Yeah.
he inoculates Janeway and drags her through time with him, trying to get these inoculations into all the gel packs on the ship to recombine it in present day. And they bump into things like the macrovirus and Dr. Chaotica.
Yeah. I must admit, Shattered is one of my sort of favourite episodes when it comes to Star Trek Voyager. It's always one that I've always enjoyed watching.
It's quirky, there's a lot of silly jokes in it, like Chakotay sneaking about trying to hide cider from Neelix, and at the very end of it when they deflect the time lightning using the deflector, and it's like, yeah, do you mind telling me why B'Elanna just burnt out the deflector? It's like, can't, temporal prime directive.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always enjoyed that one. So, yeah. I haven't watched it for a while, but I should actually be getting to it very soon because it comes to my rewatch of Star Trek. I'm actually now on Voyager. So,
Yes, you said that you just started Voyager recently, didn't you?
yeah, I'm currently about halfway through season 1. No, actually more than that, 'cause season 1 I think has only got 16 or 18 episodes, and I think I'm on episode 10 or 11.
Right, I think season 1 ended at an episode called The 37s.
That's where things did and didn't happen. With Voyager, it sort of went a bit weird. In some places, season 2 actually starts with the 37s instead of ending season 1.
Right.
So, yeah, I think on its first run, from what I've heard, is it was part of season 1, but when it got released onto tape, it was actually season 2's opening episode.
Right, so they rejigged it about a little bit.
Yeah, I never did look into it because the 37s is also another one of my favourites as well.
It's a good, strong episode, yeah.
But
Wait,
yeah,
wait. It's an episode that you loved. You into what?
well, this was back in the 90s, so when when it originally was showed, I hadn't seen it because I started watching Voyager in season 3, and I didn't go back to season 1 until I'd finished watching season 6. Then I watched season 2 and then season 1. And it was one of those things that I just didn't have time to look, and sort of, this was the sort of early noughties, and yeah, I was busy doing so many other things at the time, I never got a chance to investigate and just never did.
Wait. For all us Americans, that was hilarious. The early naughties.
Yes, it does sound like some sort of odd film.
But yeah, I think I'm trying to think where I left off. I think it was Heroes and Demons. that I was watching. So yeah, that puts me to episode 12. So yeah, almost finished season 1. So yeah, I think I just didn't get a chance to update my spreadsheet. So but yeah, that puts me of watching 12 episodes out of 172. So that's 7% of it watched. So yeah, I'm very, very slowly getting through everything. So according to my little chart, because I've got my little spreadsheet that's monitoring it all, I've now watched 78% of all Star Trek TV series. So
Nice.
not bad for just over 6 months.
That's a lot of hours of track.
It is. Anyone would think that I don't sleep.
I heard that you still haven't started doing that yet.
Not all the time.
He's not human. He's not human.
Shh! Don't tell people that. It's a secret.
Oh, that's right. Manu will have to come and assimilate me.
Oh,
Yeah.
baby.
But yeah. As I said, Shattered was always one of my favourite ones. So it was nice with Seska sort of being, well, Seska trying to sort of turn the tides and saying, we want to have sort of like the inoculation because we're going to take over the ship again.
Do it in my time frame so the Kazon can rule the ship.
Just like, yeah, we're really going to let that happen.
Go get the Borg. Go get the Borg.
Alex Wonder in chat says the early noughties sounds troublesome.
It does sound like a porno. I will give it that.
Well, Will Smith did say that in 1999 that he's here and he likes it. So he was ready for the noughties.
Will 2K.
Yeah. I don't know why that just came into my mind.
I had that album back in my college years.
Oh dear. Okay. Community feedback. Now, we did end up missing some...
I do have a few articles in the science lab.
Someone just didn't mark that down in the...
Yes, Stu.
Yes,
I'll
Stu.
get the.
You didn't mark it as green, so I didn't know
God,
to do it.
Stu, jeez.
I'll
One
get
job.
the newspaper.
No, not again. Ow,
Get him.
harder,
Whoa,
softer.
hey, whoa.
Look, I'm slowly turning all of the crew, Timber. You'll be next eventually.
Oh, God.
Go get him.
Okay, so yeah, science lab.
A brief history of Stephen Hawking. Born January 8th, 1942. Aged 75. Happy birthday, Stephen Hawking.
So for anyone who's not aware, one of the things we're sort of covering is, as you mentioned, Science Lab. So this is a section for sort of real-world science news that somehow relates to Star Trek. And of course, Stephen Hawking appeared in The Next Generation, not to mention a lot of his theories about space and time and black holes and whatever have appeared in Star Trek episodes.
Indeed, Stephen Hawking notes that one of his sort of the key accolades in his life was appearing on The Simpsons and in Star Trek Next Generation. But of course, he has multiple doctorates in theoretical physics and is a commander of the British Empire, right? CBE.
And of course, if you do want to see a little bit more of Stephen Hawking, then watch The Big Bang, because he keeps appearing in there. What they do with him in The Big Bang is just so funny. He's really seems to be a really good sport. There is one where they actually have Stephen Hawking phone up to wish Sheldon a happy birthday, and of course, with his chair and the way that it talks, he goes to singing "Happy Birthday," but of course he starts off and he goes in the electronic voice, "Happy birthday to you." And then there's this sort of gap, and then Sheldon goes, "Oh, thank you," and then of course it goes, "Happy birthday to you," and he's like, "Oh, so you're going to sing the whole thing?" Just cracks me up every time.
It's apparently just recently he had new software installed in the voice modulator, and when it was being done, someone said to him, "Why don't you change the voice? Get an upgrade to it and your voice?" And his response was just like, "No, because it wouldn't be my voice." He's been speaking with the same computer voice since
It's
1985.
because that computer voice is iconic. Not Ubisoft iconic, but actual iconic.
Yeah.
Even more well known than Siri.
Yeah, Cortana.
Yeah, I love when Howard from The Big Bang Theory does an impression of him by shaking his lips up and down.
Yeah.
Yes, his method of speaking is
Wait,
using
shaking his
the...
lips?
Yeah.
Surely you mean Richard Nixon.
No, definitely Ethan Hawke. What am I talking about?
Wake
Talking
up,
about
Ethan.
football, mate.
No, definitely Stephen Hawking. He does a good impression of him where he puts his finger in between his lips and just starts moving up and down to make a robotic voice.
I just watched that episode 2 days ago. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. So, but yeah, happy birthday to Stephen Hawking for his birthday last Sunday. Now you've also got another item in here.
Yes, funnily enough, this happened just a couple of days later. Today in 1942 marks the first time that an ejector seat was used during an emergency situation. It was used on board a German fighter jet, which was in testing, and it was being towed behind an aircraft just powered by propellers. But the German pilot, Mr. Helmut Schenk, all his control panels had frozen up, and he literally could not fly the plane anymore. So he just untethered it from the plane in front, and he just hit his ejector seat and lived to tell the tale, which is quite notable for that time, because not many people survived accidents of that type.
And for anyone who's thinking about, especially today being Friday the 13th, and who is superstitious, when this happened in 1942, it was a Tuesday.
Now that I did not know.
I'm sorry, I didn't pay attention outside of the guy's name being Helmut Schenk, and all I'm thinking is that's the prison guard's name from the porno.
So, well, I was going to try and make a joke because, of course, it's just like maybe something wasn't installed properly because they're waiting till Tuesday, and of course he was already in the air. So, but yeah, you've got to wonder because, of course, when it comes to ejection seats, when it came to the Kelvin universe, you've got the Kelvin pods. Because of what happened to the USS Kelvin in the 2009 film. They obviously decided that rather than using shuttles, they would have escape pods. So it's a good thing that the ejection seat wasn't named after this guy, because as you said, I think the way you pronounce it is almost like Shank.
Get
we
your
could have
shank
had
pods, guys.
we we could have had a very strange name for it.
To say the least.
But of course, knowing us, we've probably completely butchered his name and said it completely wrong. So...
And sort of on the side of that as well, when you mentioned escape pods, apparently pods were designed and used in a series of US bombers, and the plane could be flown from inside the pod, and only in an emergency would it seal up, shoot out, and, well, it could land safely in the sea, but if you had a landing on a more solid surface, you might not be as lucky as if you land in the water. But yeah, there's photos of these escape pod things which look pretty cool.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Okay, so now we're on to community feedback. Try to. Now, last week we did miss some feedback. We didn't get a chance to get everything into show notes. So, just going to go through quickly the feedback that we had from episode 246. Of course, community question number 1 was, did you make use of the Star Trek Online $100 Zen promotion? And if so, what did you win? So Fred Ortiz actually replied to us on the 602 Club's Star Trek Online fan group and said, nope, had them bills to pay. Yep, completely understand. The most I've been doing for a lot of that is, well, same again, sort of not a lot, especially with it being Christmas, New Year. I haven't really had much money to sort of get a lot at all. Then, same thing from episode 246, the community question 2 was, what are your thoughts on the up-and-coming Star Trek Timelines 1.6 release? And again, Fred Ortiz had actually said it's going to be nice for those players who have been playing for a while, but for those of us on the low end, we'll just keep chugging along. We also had a reply from Mark Andrew James Widows on the Star Trek Online Live Facebook group, who has said Star Trek Timelines is goodish. A little repetitive, pay-to-win game. A decent storyline, ships look amazing, decent gameplay, and easy to learn. Make it good. The whole downside is it's a pay-to-win, and paying stuff is forced on you quite a bit, which spoils the game. So, yeah, it's basically what we have said and sort of echoed in the past, is especially the amount you have to pay can, especially as you start getting higher up and you just want to get an extra few slots, and I think I'm now up to a few slots being like 3,000 dilithium. It's a lot. So, but yeah, I suppose only time will tell whether sort of prices will change. I know when it comes to the slots, they have come down just a little bit, so hopefully they'll come down more. And of course, from episode 246, the community question 3 was, what are your thoughts on the Ezri Dax character from Deep Space Nine? Or, of course, the novels themselves. So Fred Ortiz replied to this saying, Ezri Dax was a great shake-up for Deep Space Nine in the final season. Hell, basically people forget that the Trill symbiote deal basically is Star Trek's version of regeneration of a character, sort of a la Doctor Who. Her one season was basically trying to figure herself out, and it was quite awesome to watch. Plus, those of us who shipped Dax Bashir Fix back in the day were happy with the end result. Now, Fred, I think you're one of the very few people who actually agree with that, because I find that there seems to often be a lot of hate towards Esri Dax. A lot of people don't seem to like her. I must admit, I'm one of the ones that did like her, because I think a lot of people found her to be very sort of whiny, but sort of, as you say, she was trying to find herself, and it wasn't like she was like that for the entire thing. For the first few episodes, yeah, she was, but then that was the whole thing. Unlike sort of Jadzia and all the other hosts, she had no preparation. She hadn't expected something like this, and sort of she was very confused. And they do carry that on a little bit through the rest of the series. Um, so there's a couple of times where it sort of talked and mentioned about just a little bit, but you see how much stronger she gets with herself and sort of knows a bit more about sort of what she wants. And when it comes to the books, I've read a few novels where sort of the Esri character has been sort of in there, and yeah, I think she's been written in really well. Um, but unfortunately, when it comes to the novels, yeah, the Dax Bashir days don't seem to be that way. Well, not completely. Um, but they're definitely good reads. So if you haven't read them, yeah, I would go and do that.
Okay, so I figured out what it was that I was having a problem with Ezra on. And yeah, part of it is whiny. It has nothing to do with her character being whiny. It has everything to do with her voice being gratingly whiny. See, there are people on YouTube that I simply just cannot watch because my mind cannot stand how they speak, how their vocal cords produce sound grates on my mind, like literally putting my brain against a cheese grater. I can't stand it, and Esri is one of those people.
Wow, that's strong words.
I mean, I would love the hell to watch some of these really philosophical people on YouTube. I would love it. I just can't stand their voice.
Maybe she needed a British accent.
Rather.
Well, fair enough. To be honest, I never had an issue with it. But as I said, I always liked the Esri character. It was always a shame that, of course, it was just 7 seasons. So, for a character development for what is really a new character, they did pretty well with it. Because, of course, we had some aspects of her which you technically know from the previous 6 years, but you don't know her properly. So, but yeah, I thought she did really well. We also had some general feedback when it comes to episode 246. We had Fred Kasdan, Basement, who actually commented on Holosuite Media's YouTube channel and said, in regards to how the ship is treated, I can't remember which one this was. I think this was in regards to the aircraft carrier discussion that we had. I think it's a while back now. So yeah, in regards to how the ship is treated, one has to remember Roddenberry was in the US Air Force and was stationed to be part of the crew of a B-17 bomber, where the treat the plane like a lady mentality was kind of common. Same thing with naval vessels, because any time the plane was damaged, it was always addressed as she's hurt, etc. Now, Harve Bennett, the man put in charge to oversee the TOS films, was a veteran of the Korea War, and I believe a helicopter pilot, and had the attitude of, if a chopper crashed or destroyed, no big loss. yet another one, and it's that attitude who's in the Kelvin timeline. So, finishing reading this again, I think this was the discussion we had about the Kelvin timeline enterprises being basically blown up so much, or at least almost destroyed. And of course, when we talked about Star Trek Beyond and what happens at the end and the beginning. So yeah, thank you, Fred, for your comments. Then we get on to the last bit of feedback from episode 246, which, this is from Tim Borg. So this is from his Facebook group, Star Trek Fans of Kelvin Timeline and Star Trek Online. So his original comment was, way too much ranting. Well, we say what we think. It's always been what the show is about. It's a roundtable discussion podcast. So we have the topics, we'll often squirrel off, and yep, there can be ranting, but that's because we're passionate about Star Trek and the games that evolve around it. Fred Ortiz actually replied and said, "You can't ever have too much ranting. I prove that daily." Big smiley face. And then, of course, we had Tim Borg's lovely response, which was, "I had a nightmare about this show and the tranny on it."
Wait, we have a tranny? God, this will make working in engineering so much easier. You just move whole parts around. When did we get a tranny? I've never known there to be. We've had to use the transporter to move everything on the ship.
It's one of those comments that, we can joke about it like Sun is doing in a very, push off to the side. At the same time, it's a comment that was not needed. And definitely for someone who is in the media core for STO and someone who wants to put their name out there, not a comment we would have expected. It actually threw a few of us behind the scenes a little off guard and shocked us a little bit. Quite honestly, as my buddy Stu Dog has put it, if you don't like the people that do the podcast, if you don't like the content, there is a nice little button at the top right of the window. It's an X. It closes the window. There is a toolbar, lovely toolbar, that allows you to go to other websites by simply typing in the name of it and pressing enter. Long story short, if you don't like us, and if you don't like what we do, you can easily change websites or change what you're listening to. But those kind of comments, no.
Yeah, well, I actually replied because of Christmas. I didn't actually read that last one because I'd seen Fred's one before, but I didn't actually see that comment until afterwards. So I replied with, "Tim, I just saw your last comment, and I must admit I am very disappointed with your attitude towards my panelist, more so as it's so un-idic." And yeah, I was. It's just, there was no need for any of that. If you're unhappy about something, talk like that. Sorry, no. Sort of, to be honest, it made me think back about Woody's comments on sort of homosexuals and things like that, sort of where he just goes, "Oh, it's just so unnatural. It's just like, seriously, no." Yes, I know that's his views, but it's just like, to put it that way, just.
Well, see, here's the thing. There's not, if that's his view, that's his view. The moment it became a problem was when he started to use it in a negative tone against someone that's on the panel. If he doesn't like that person or half the people here, if he doesn't like the ranting, he doesn't have to listen. He doesn't have to have those nightmares because he doesn't have to listen anymore. There's a difference between having a viewpoint and just, okay, that's my viewpoint, and then using it to trash talk or demean another person. There's a huge difference there. And I think a lot of us are in agreement. He did cross that line with the comment. And,
Yeah,
and
Definitely.
it's just, he can have that viewpoint, keep it to yourself. Especially
The thing
don't put
is,
it out on a public feedback on a public website that anyone can see.
yeah,
You know, I'm actually of the opinion of the opposite of that. Yeah, go ahead, get your opinion out there. Let us know how much of a hate-filled person you are so people cannot deal with you. Because, see, that's the thing about having an opinion. You have every right to have your opinion. What you don't have the right to do is have control of how other people react to your opinion and how people shut you out for your opinion.
well, we never got any other response back, so hopefully he will consider other people a little bit more in the future. But we shall move on. Okay, so the community questions from last week's episode 247. Sunseal, did you want to start going through those?
Okay, before I go through those, I just want to say I've been sitting here playing timelines while while we've been doing the podcast. And part of the Convergence Day stuff was here are some tokens for our Convergence Day things that you can open up the little packs for. I just now have gotten my first 5 or 6 tier starship. It's the ISS Enterprise.
I've had it for a while. It's great.
So yeah, I've been dealing with the little 1 and 2 starships for forever, and this is my first higher than 3-star tiered starship. So there's that.
God, it feels good when you grind it out, doesn't it?
Well, considering I was unable to play for about 6 months, you know, it is like coming back into the game as an entirely new person again. Just a person with a leg up because I have all of this crap for these events that I've that I ground out at the first couple of months of the game. So yeah, our first community question was, are you excited for Tony Todd to be joining Star Trek Online? Alex Wunger responded in our forum post and said, I have to admit, I'm unsure what to think. I mean, it's always great to get another Trek actor in the game, and people like, what's her name, Kim Rhodes, also known as Ensign Lindsay Ballard, Jet Laya, prove that you don't need the big names to make a splash. But at the same time, players seem to react really positively to her performance. So much so that there were interviews saying that Cryptic was thinking about possibly bringing her back for another episode. Too bad the storyline seemed to be locked in years in advance. So maybe 5 years down the line, when everybody already forgot about her, she'll be back. And that's why I'm cautious about this announcement. Whether it's a great addition or not, it may take years and years and years to bring him back, if ever. Question 2 was how many Star Trek Timelines events did you participate in during the holidays? Alex replied on the forums and said, do you really want Sun to do an encore? I mean, I wouldn't mind that because I really appreciated her willingness to go the extra mile last time. Yes, we get it, Alex. You don't play. You don't have to answer that question no more.
But
Although
it's
it is
so
funny.
much fun.
It is. Look, it is funny. It's very Cardassian of Alex to keep making up new ways to go. No, I don't play this game. He's like our own little Garrick.
One day that he says something like, "I don't play it because I'm too busy lining up beer bottles to shoot off my fence," or something like that.
I don't know. Is he allowed to own a weapon in that portion of Europe?
Well, as long as he doesn't shoot people with it, I guess he's all right.
I don't know. There are some countries that have flat out weapons bans unless you're in the military. I don't know.
They can line up beer bottles and open them, drink the beer, and throw the caps at them.
I guess you could do that. So our community question, the third, was, what are your New Year's hopes and resolutions? And of course, Alex replied on the forums and said, I don't really have any New Year's hopes or resolutions. Let's just see what happens and hope we get through another year without blowing ourselves up.
So yeah, New Year's resolution is to not die. I like it.
That's a good resolution.
I'm not going to talk about politics. I mean, I could spend an entire podcast by itself just discussing politics, but I'm not going to do it here. So we had some general feedback. A fearsome Gru responded on Twitter and said, Stowe just can't leave it alone. They have to wrap up everything we saw on the show. Throw an imagination, Cryptic.
I must admit, I must respond to that because I like the fact that they tie up all these little loose ends in Star Trek. It's lots of people write fanfic just to do that because, well, one, it's fun and it's good to see the direction that they go in. It's nice playing an episode and going, that's related to that, and sometimes it could be just the smallest comment. And sometimes it could be much bigger and a whole episode sort of wrapping it all up. And I like that.
The whole timeline's been wrecked and you're crawling about in some dodgy universe somewhere and you find James T. Kirk dead. Yeah. He's dead, Jim.
Who's Jim?
But no, as I said, I enjoy that they do all these little tie-ins. And yeah, they could make a whole new species up if they want, and they have. But at the end of the day, people like to sort of pretend they are in the show. You've got a lot of people who play Star Trek Online that are role players. So to do content where it sort of wraps up all these little things, they like that as well. So yeah, there may be times where it doesn't wrap it up the way you thought it should, but yeah, everybody's to their own, and yeah, whereas I do like it, I'm sure there are plenty of other people who don't and would like just to see new stuff. I don't know what you guys think.
Pardon me. Yeah, I'll have to agree with you there, Midnight. I do like the tie-ins and the canon information that they put into it. Makes it just that little bit more interesting, you know? Obviously, as time goes on and the game's progressed, they've had to start making up stories like bringing back the Iconians and so on. Even though the Iconians are canon, they might not have necessarily come back at that time. But obviously, Cryptic have brought them back, so yeah, I love it. It's really good.
For me, quite honestly, I wish either some of the stuff, and I know this has to do with, I guess, permissions and all that kind of crap. But it would be nice to see things more reference from the novels, or if you really want to give the fans a little something back for all the dedication they do with their fan fictions, reference fan fictions, if that's possible. I mean, it's not going to be really much of a licensing issue. The fans get what they want, and CBS, the parent company, gets money made off of it. For example, for me, one of the big stories that I wouldn't have minded seeing was Virtual Voyager, and it was a 2-season extension to Star Trek Voyager. They did a season 8 and a season 9. It was 26 to 29 episodes per season. They were written in book form, but it chronicled what happened to Voyager and the crew after they returned to Earth, and it led to a new super enemy called the Cyrax, which they honestly made the Undine look like children when it came to levels of technology and when it came to weaponry and all that kind of stuff and maliciousness. Just seeing something like that coming into the game would have been nice, because the description about, let's say, Cyrax Tech hull, the way they described it in the fan fiction for that was it would take multiple sovereign phaser arrays firing at the same time, or multiple ships firing phasers at a scout simultaneously to overload the hull to blow it up. So that's just a scout ship with the weakest level of hull they could create. So a battleship would take tremendous amounts of firepower to blow up. Yet these things are made of, what was it, a boson composite of frozen photonium? So it was,
That's
they had
technobabble if I've ever heard it.
they went all out when it came to the technology and everything, but it was a super enemy. It was something that could level us without preparation. But to me, that would have been something they could have brought into the timeline. And I know that has to do with a lot of legal jargon and everything, but giving the fans, some of these fan productions that are just written, they're just on a website, just written. I'm not talking about the ones that get put out on YouTube or by Vic and they're making money off of it in whatever way they are, and Star Trek Continues and all that bullshit. Just the ones that spend the time writing. All they end up having is a website that stores their stories in a written format, and they have a following. The big two that I remember are Virtual Voyager and Star Trek Renaissance.
The thing is, you say that
reference
they
that.
they have included lots of little references to things, including sort of Star Trek Online audio dramas when it comes to ship names and all sorts of things.
But that's Star Trek Online audio dramas. I'm talking about bringing in something that doesn't deal with the timeline we're dealing with, because a lot of these things, Star Trek Renaissance, for example, Star Trek Renaissance is in the same time frame as Star Trek Online, but they're dealing with the Enterprise G. And it's hard to reference the Enterprise G when the Enterprise F just launched, quote-unquote, last year. Those kind of things. They're bringing in things that deal specifically with their timeline, but especially now with the temporal war, and they've introduced the Kelvin timeline and the alternate realities, let's start introducing those alternate realities. Let's really bring in stuff that didn't mesh before, but because of the alternate reality rules, could mesh now. And it does open the door for more than just Star Trek Online tailored stuff.
Wait. I just had the worst and most awesome thought at the same time.
Oh, God.
Because the Enterprise keeps getting blown up so damn much in the JJ verse. By the time they get to the actual D, it will probably be called the Enterprise Double D.
Oh, God.
That's actually quite clever.
Yeah. And you're probably right about that if they keep it going. It would just be nice to see things that aren't just tailored for Star Trek Online specific storylines they could hint at. And that's the one thing I saw when we saw Terminal Expanse, when we went to the Kelvin timeline universe, we were reading the computers on the sphere. I mean, there was one universe where the Dominion and the Iconians had formed an alliance that had taken over the entire galaxy. Let's see a little bit more of that reference. I wouldn't mind seeing that, or delving into that alternate reality for one episode and dealing with that level of shenanigans, at least until it gets wiped out. Just a little bit, a little bit more there. Maybe it doesn't have to deal with STO.
We've got this mirror universe that keeps wanting to come over here and cause problems in our yard all the time. Why not?
You mean the
that
mirror
universe comes
timeline?
along and why not have that other mirror universe come and decide to knock on the door and
Hell yeah!
deliver some cookies?
There's the number one thing right there that I'd love to see. We keep seeing the mirror universe. It doesn't matter who is our main enemy, the Iconians, the Borg, the Nakul, now it's going to be the Zenkethi. It doesn't matter. Eventually the mirror universe comes back and we fight them for a bit and they disappear. And they come back and then we fight them again. I see it as a perfect opportunity. Let's make a whole story arc about the mirror universe where we're fighting them. And it would be the perfect opportunity to bring in Tier 6 mirror universe starships, since they're bringing in Tier 6 versions of the old T5s and replacing them. The Keldon class replaces the Galore class permanently in the box. Let's just finally end the mirror universe threat. They keep picking on us. They keep coming over here. Let's have a whole story arc where we just end that once and for all. We seal the barrier. We do something, but we end that threat. That's been we've been dealing with now for 7 years since the game's inception.
You're not going. I'm sorry. You're not going to end that threat. Why? Because it's time travel. And I'm sorry to all the people who go gravimetric this or relay that. I'm sorry. The mirror universe is time travel. It has always been time travel. It will always be time travel, and it's been. It is more of a sticking out point now that we've dicked around in our own timeline and changed it than anything. That the mirror universe, quote unquote, is actually its own different timeline, and yet we haven't gone and dicked around in it ourselves.
Well, then let's go in there, dick around with them some.
Let's take the genocide machine with us.
Yeah, let's just do that. Come on. I don't know. I think that's one of the more underutilized pieces of content that we've dealt with would be the mirror universe. They've been a threat that keeps poking in, and they just get thrown in for like one episode or a cameo here, but they keep becoming a threat, and then we have our events. We have that event every so often, the mirror invasion. They're coming back. They're invading again. Come on.
Going back to what Sun said, I disagree. It's not time travel. It's the same time. It's a different reality.
But that's exactly what all time is. All timelines are the same time, but a different reality.
Not in Star Trek. It doesn't always. It's not always like that.
It's like that episode of Red Dwarf where they go back in time, but now they're back in time in like 1942 deep space as opposed to 3,046 deep space. They're still in the same place.
Yeah, but they're going backwards. It was a different reality though. Everything was backwards. Everyone walked backwards and cycled backwards and talked backwards. It wasn't.
Oh, that was a different episode. I was speaking about one where they get a hyperdrive, but they can't go anywhere. No, it's not hyperdrive. Sorry, it's a time drive. But they can't go anywhere because they don't have a hyperdrive. They can only go back and forward, but they're just still in the same place, which is deep space. So they go back to whenever 1492. But there's no time travel with the mirror universe. That's all the future guys do, the time travel. The Krenim and the Spear guys and the other guys that are really annoying with their duplicating ships. The Mirror Universe never did any back and forth and all that, did they?
The only time we really had a larger window in canon to the Mirror Universe was in Enterprise. Because it was more than one episode in it. I mean, we had our episodes for Deep Space Nine, but they were one-offs. Enterprise had like 2 or 3 episodes devoted strictly to the Mirror Universe, and it was them finding
The Defiant.
The Defiant, basically finding an
The
Constitution, the Constitution class before they ever had the idea for building a Constitution class.
Which those were brilliant episodes in its own right, because they even changed the intro as if you were watching it in the Mirror Universe.
Yes,
those, and I think those were some of the ones that were some of the highest rated when it came to TV ratings because of how well done they were and how true to form they were. It's like, okay, I'm in the Mirror Universe watching this Mirror Universe episode. This is pretty awesome.
But see, that's the weird thing. This is why I consider it a timeline. It's that opening. It's because of that opening and those openings that I consider it not an alternate reality. It is just a separate timeline. Because of that opening, everything that has happened in our history has happened in that history. It just plays a prominent, this is how our society has worked, which, is how our society has worked in the past. And the only difference that seems to be of any major consequence in that timeline is that when the Vulcans land, Cochrane pulls out a shotgun. And thus the Terran Empire starts. It's not a different reality. It's just a separate timeline.
Alex in chat says time travel in Star Trek does not always work like time travel in Star Trek. If that statement does not seem to make sense, that's the point. So, shall we move on to Brandon Gray's feedback?
Sure. Okay, so Brandon Gray replied to our Tribbles and Ecstasy Facebook page on the Massively OP article that was talking about Season 12. And included in the article was some screenshots for a new NX-01 type. And Brandon responds, nice. Been hoping they add the NX refit. In fact, I first noticed these pictures coming from Priority 1, which Priority 1 did not even link to the Massively OP article. They just had it on their Facebook page. And somebody hauled in Doug Drexler and said, what do you think of this? And I don't remember what Doug Drexler said, but he's like, that's interesting.
That's a confidence builder.
So I don't know. I don't even know what the story reason is behind us having this NX-01 unless it's going to be introduced later on during First Contact Day.
Possibly.
I mean, because why would you have a? I mean, this goes back to the tireless Alex argument. You talk about things being silly on the Klingon side, and if this NX refit turns out to be a Tier 6 starship, fuck you, Cryptic. Fuck everything about you and your reasonings for shit.
The only thing I can think of that would possibly necessitate that is because we're going back to, I guess, basic exploration with Lucari. This is their first starship in forever, and they're finally journeying out to the stars. They could equate that to when we had the NX class, and hey, by the way, here's the first major starship that left Earth's solar system, and it gets to pair with itself with Lucari on exploration.
Yeah, we thought we'd join you in your mission using this old thing.
Yeah,
And
that we've
let's
retrofitted.
let's go and have a look. Oh, wait a minute, we've just gotten ourselves into a war, and there's no way we can win with these like really old Spitfires. And then yeah, we win. So yeah,
Yeah.
this is the sort of thing that would happen.
Let's escort this Lucari ship with hundreds of year old tech, because exploration and companionship, and oh, we got our asses handed to us. We're all dead. Sorry.
Well, the other thing that would necessitate it being T6, and they made a precedent for this, was Agency Yesterday. It could be just like they did the Temporal Light Cruiser in the Constitution class. It's a Constitution class, but it's been brought forward in time and retrofitted, so it'll have like the molecular reconstruction and temp op seating, because it's an NX class, but it's not really one. It's been
But we can't
modified.
have a Cavort class battlecruiser because, quote unquote, that's just silly.
I don't make the rules. I'm just saying.
Again, this is why I said, if this turns out to be a tier 6 starship, fuck you, Cryptic. Because your argument for anything starship related falls flat on its fucking face.
Well, all I can say is I'm hoping when it does get released that they do some kind of Klingon and Romulan option, or at least, I mean, typically when like the Lucari ship goes live, like I said, the past few years, they've done a multi-pack in the C-store that does include Romulan and Klingon options as well. Maybe they do something to pair it off well, so there's other options for our KDF and our Romulan players. If not, hey, I don't know. I tried mentally.
I wouldn't mind seeing what the opinion of a really old sort of Vulcan-y Romulan "we're leaving your planet because you're all a bunch of logical morons" ships would look like, or a Klingon sort of, yeah, so we designed this engine so we can fly places to beat the heck out of people with these batleths ship.
Well, I mean, if they're doing the NX retrofit as a tier 6, they could easily pull from the tier 1s. I mean, you do have, even though they've tried to make it into a new age starship, the design is pretty much the same as the first Romulan ship we see in Enterprise. So the Talis, it's there. And if they didn't want to rehash a tier 1 model that's of the same equal as the NX class, you could always do the model of the D4 bird of prey from Enterprise. So it's a bird of prey. And now it's a T6 bird of prey, but it looks like it came from the 22nd century. They could do that.
See if they were going to do stuff like that, why not do that kind of stuff? But no, we can't have the Daradex battleship that looks like it's from the TOS era. No, we can't have that D9, D10 looking God, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's the battle cruiser for the Klingons if you're playing Days of Doom. Yeah, no. Let's not have those, 'cause raisins. But yeah, we can give the Federation this entire suite of ships from the original series up to the 31st fucking century. I mean, and I say if, Alex. I say if specifically because does anybody remember when they brought up the Constellation? It's what is that? A tier 3, tier 4 starship? It wasn't an in-game starship, and that's the one everybody went and bought and gobbled up because Picard jump. Right?
Yeah, it's entirely possible it's not a T6. I mean, it could be. Or it could be something they threw in and it's Tier 5, like the Tier 5 Ambassador class. Or it could be something that's a low-level ship, so it's still entry-level. We don't know yet. They haven't released any official data on it. We just have a photo. So, we won't officially know for a while.
Because the Picard one was the heavy cruiser, and it was modeled kind of like after the Hathaway looking, the heavy cruisers. But it was what was it? I want to say it was the Constellation.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they finally put that in the game and gave all the Federation characters the Picard maneuver. But that wasn't an in-game ship. That was somewhere in the middle of the tiers.
It's Tier 3. I'm looking at it right now. It's Tier 3, so yeah.
I think there was a fleet version that was Tier 5, though, which at the time was Endgame.
Well, yeah, that's because the fleet system naturally does that.
But as far as C-Store and the console that gives you the Picard maneuver, it's a Tier 3, so it costs 1,000 Zen.
So it is wholly possible that this is just going to be like a step up version. I mean, you're already paying what, 500 for the ship in the C-Store in the first place. This might just be a step up somewhere along the line. And yeah, it could be a temporal step up too. Like it could be a tier 3 or 4 starship that has a temporal seat in it, but it could still be a low level thing.
Well, I'm thinking if it's not T5 or T6, more or less T6, if they make it, let's say it's a Tier 3, just for the sake of argument, Tier 3, it's on the same level as the Perseus class from the Temporal Agent pack. It wouldn't have temporal operative seating, but it would still have that molecular reconstruction and that particular beam weapon that comes with that. It would give it a new mechanic. It would be a few tiers higher. You could probably it would do a little bit better. But I don't know. Like I said, we're gonna have to wait and see because we never know what they're going to make it until they announce it. I mean, it could end up being a reskin of the T1 and it's a Tier 1. I mean, we don't even know. It could just be, hey, more eye candy.
Maybe we'll actually see a new Utopia Planitia this year with that actually hanging up in it as a model. Because you've got Picard and like just about everybody else talking about seeing models of these ships in like a Smithsonian museum.
Now, those photos have been circulating on Google of all places. I mean, you look up that and it'll show a Utopia Planitia model, and on the outside of Utopia Planitia, it has each of the Enterprises docked like they would be in a space dock. They're each of them docked in a circular pattern going from the NX class all the way up to the Galaxy class. Obviously, some of them they would have to build a replica so that it could be docked. Some will be original models. But yeah, I mean, it was a full-on museum for the flagships of the Federation. So we could be seeing that. Especially with it being the 50th and the 7-year anniversary of the game, they could have a museum item on the map. Hell, it'd be kind of cool to have a museum map where you could just go through them all, you know?
Well, remember all the stuff they said, last year. They had plans for First Contact Day. It just wasn't ready. Because they, pushed it aside to do other stuff. You can always wonder, but
I mean, it just comes down to the fact we don't know yet. We've got a photo of a starship that I mean, I've been wanting to have that variation, because I like the way the NX retrofit looked. We just won't know what role it plays in the story or what tier it's going to be until they actually tell us. Or if it's even coming in and it's just a piece of eye candy to bring people in the game and it never shows up. Don't know.
I still want a version of the Typhoon.
As do I, my friend.
I'm sorry. I don't care what Cryptic says. Having having a cruiser on the Federation side with oversized Cerberus nacelles from the Prometheus variant was just badass looking. I'm sorry. And because it's the Cerberus nacelles, there's 4 of them, so there's 2 on each nacelle.
I mean, when I first came into the game, it just looked like one of those Frankenstein fleet ships at first. The design grew on me. And then they started replacing them. I'm like, wait a minute, I want to play as that starship now. I kind of like it. Like, give me one. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I wouldn't mind having that as a playable starship now.
And where's the Klingons' Tier 6 carrier? You owe us a carrier. You do owe us a carrier.
That comes on Tuesday.
That's not going to come. I have a feeling
there.
it's not going to come at all. Remember, they used that carrot and stick bullshit when they did the first pick a ship what we designed. They specifically used that bullshit. It's like, if this does well, maybe we'll do one for the Romulans and the Klingons. Bullshit. If it did well,
I will say, son, I'm still hopeful for that. Now, if it happens or it doesn't happen, that's entirely on them. I'm still hopeful because now they've done this whole help create the starship twice. Though I honestly thought we would be slightly more involved on the building than just the design with the Lucari than we were with the Jupiter class. I'm still hopeful, though, now that they've done it twice, that they will still do something that is just for the Klingons or just for the Romulans. Now, they're doing it only what looks like once a year. If we go a year or two and we still haven't seen something like that for the Klingons or the Romulans, then okay.
No, we have one for the Romulans already. It's just in a box.
No, I'm talking about this community create a starship deal. That's what they were talking about. Is if the Jupiter does well, we can do a community create a Klingon science vessel or a Romulan carrier.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. And you know what their excuse is going to be? Not enough people play this faction for us to justify doing that.
Well, the reason I'm hopeful is they used that logic was it like 2 years ago, where you don't make science vessels because they don't sell. But the reason they don't sell is because they didn't make them. Well, now the past year and a half, we've seen a shit ton of science come out from starships and abilities and specializations, and it's sold like gangbusters. So I'm still going to remain hopeful until I don't see it. I'm going to try. I'm going to be patient. And I will give you the soapbox so that you can still rant.
I've tried and been patient for 5+ years now over getting a battlecruiser shaped bird of prey.
The tie?
No. A bird of prey shaped battlecruiser, the Cavort.
Oh, I thought you were referencing like the Detai, the bird of prey that's bigger than a frickin' Pterodax.
That's kind of what the Cavort was. Because even though you only really see a lot of the the cavort from the Yesterday's Enterprise episode because it's mentioned, and then you see the ships. You have the birds of prey from
They're all fighting with each other in that Klingon Civil War episode where
No, there's the
Worf
well,
kind of
yes,
goes
but
off.
no,
And
there's the birds of prey from the Defector.
yeah. That's
Those
what I'm thinking
giant
about.
those giant birds of prey from the Defector are canon and prove that you can make a huge bird of prey that's a battle cruiser and get away with calling it a cavort class, no matter what you say as that's just silly. Because, this goes out to the further nerdy geekery of the people who exist in our fandom. The ship that Worf was ejected from and got stuck in the Badlands was a Cavort class battle cruiser in Deep Space Nine. You know, the ship where he's like the one lost survivor, and then Ezri goes out to find him. Or was it Dax? Or was it Jadzia? It was one of the Dax that goes out and finds him in the Badlands in an escape pod, and it was a Cavort class battle cruiser that blew up. So there is holy canon for it existing in the current everything climate. It's just that Cryptic chooses not to put it in game.
The link, Alex, that I put in our chat on Twitch, it's called, I always go to ditl.org because they typically have a lot of Starship data from the show. They call it on their website the Detai. D''T''AI. And if you
never
look
heard
at
it referred to as that before.
it's what it's referred to, at least on this website. And if you look at images, it's got the HD Blu-ray image from what he's talking about in the Defector. You see the Enterprise, you see these D'Deriadexes, and then you see these gigantic birds of prey. As far as his specs, he's got the length of these things at 654 meters with a beam of 552. So these are huge birds of prey. And as far as size comparison, they're the same length as Devore warships. So they're on that same size scale. So if we can see them in the Defector and they're that large, it does go to Sunseal's point. You could make one that large, because if the Klingons are good about anything, it's about reusing designs for centuries and just doing minor updates. And if necessary, just make it bigger. Just make it bigger. And I think during this whole conversation, we killed G's and we killed Midnight, because I haven't heard them in
Seems
forever.
like.
I'm just trying to avoid Alex's general feedback.
You can't avoid that. He wrote a book. You know this.
But yes, I do think I've put Midnight to sleep. And Jesus probably just fell asleep because it's so early over there. Isn't it, Stu?
It's
Stu?
it's 4
Stu,
a.m.
don't go to sleep on us. Stu, don't go to sleep on us.
I've got shopping to go and do after I finish the show, so no, I'm not going to sleep.
Okay.
Hey, I'm a nocturnal that goes to 24-hour shopping centers. In the snow. Yeah.
So Alex responded on the Stow forum. Good morning, Tribbles. Let's see what I got. Feedback. Console versus PC. Okay, we don't have access to the Matrix. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So we have no way of knowing whether the console launch was a quote-unquote success, and no, Midnight. Those job openings do not mean that the team's growing. It could very well mean that they need to replace someone who switched to Neverwinter or Champions Online. As if. Or that secret project Dan Stahl was supposed to be working on, then left the company. I mean, just look at the season 12 live stream announcement. The lead artist is supposed to be on, but to my surprise, his name is not Samuel Wall. I, I don't understand what that means, but okay. By the way, the graphic claims that Jadoa Ross is the lead designer. I thought Al Captain Gecko Rivera was the lead designer. So did I miss something? Or did the announcement leave out a word like lead content designer, or lead systems designer, or lead something designer? I don't know. I honestly have not stared at that graphic because I really don't care. If anything, from my perspective, they should be having a live stream the day before all of this crap goes live, not the day after.
Or a live stream to like press the button.
That would be cool. A live stream on the day to press the button when the servers come back up. They're
And then a
artificially
panic and spilling of champagne when it goes back down again 2 seconds later.
they're artificially holding back turning the thing on because they're doing a live stream, and then they're like, we're hitting the button now, we're pushing the button, and then suddenly the entire server is crashed because everybody who's been watching the thing is now trying to get online, and everybody who's been in this, on the launcher, who's been trying to get in and waiting for the thing to come back up, sees it's online, and now they're trying to get back in.
Chugga 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 crunch.
That would be funny.
Oopsies.
I don't know how your company is operating, but game developers tend to be rather fluid when it comes to their employees. That is one of the open secrets, and a few devs even mentioned it in a couple of interviews. You stay at a company or on a certain project for a few years, and then you move on to another project and company. So unless one of the devs comes out saying that the team has grown to at least 60-ish people, the team is not growing. The quote, too much to do. Okay, let's talk about too much to do. There is no such thing as too much to do in an MMO. I'm not saying that your feeling or complaint has no merit at all, but you should try a different angle. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look back again at World of Warcraft, Mists of Pandaria. Blizzard gave people a boatload of daily quests to do and removed the limit, so you could do as many dailies as you wanted. And some people did, and yelled at Blizzard because it was too much to do. Now the easy response is, don't do as many dailies then. Pick and choose. Prioritize. But there was merit to the complaints. See, people felt like doing all of those dailies was necessary and mandatory to get the reputation rewards, items, and other recipes for their respective professions, to do raids and heroic dungeons. So whenever you claim there is too much to do, please take a second to think about why you feel that way. Maybe you've got a valid point, or maybe you just can't prioritize. Shrug. Season 12, Reckoning. So, Season 12 launches January 26th. We're going to get the next featured episode, and the anniversary event, and the Zenkethy, and one of the promo shots, at least on Massively OP, shows the NX class refit. I am so excited, and I just can't hide it. Did that work? Please tell me that worked. Please tell me that was deadpan. I tried to do my best Ben Stein impression there. So, by the way, Reckoning. You know, I would have liked to believe. Wait, you wanted to believe something about Cryptic, Alex? What? Sorry, I poke fun. I would have liked to have believed that Cryptic did mean the whole there will be exploration thing, but all this talk about how to fight the Zenkethi and the fact that Season 12 will be called Reckoning, they did it again, didn't they? One episode of slightly exploratory stuff, then it's back to the same mindless shoot and loot. The exact same thing they did when they said Season 11, New Dawn, will be about going back to explorers and diplomats. The exact same thing. I'm so excited, and I just can't be bothered to keep writing. Drop mic.
I figured a golf clap needed to be there.
Okay. I didn't hear a golf clap so much as I heard somebody opening a bottle cap, rolling around on somebody's desk while it settled.
That was a pound coin that I found in a bag.
Oh, okay. It's like, look, at this point, I am wholly okay with somebody cracking open a beer to knock one back, because that's just that's so much truth. You can't get over that much level of truth. I mean, I've said this before multiple times. It's it's the carrot and the stick thing of, oh hey, our marketing says we are dedicated to the exploration side of everything. Oh wait, hold on. Here's a new war story arc you have to take care of first. We meet the Lucari, then we have to do an entire temporal war. Now we go on an adventure with the Lucari, who are just now building their very first exploratory spaceship in well, we don't know their history, so we don't really know how long it's been since they actually had a starship. And now we go exploring with them, and we find a proto-matter thing happening, and this other ancient enemy that we've also had contact with. And now we're going into another war story arc, because of course we are.
So, here's one for you. Instead of, like, do you want the Lucari to have this ship, that ship, or this ship? Do you want to help the Lucari explore, or do you want to bomb the Lucari?
See, I really don't. I was okay with helping the Lucari on the KDF side. Because the whole point, for me, the whole point was, okay, the Lucari have this ancient-ass Gorn ship that they're going out and exploring with. Okay, cool. My ship is the one with all the high-tech sensors, all the studying arrays, and my ship will also be playing the escort in case something goes on, because that ship cannot defend itself. Okay, I'm okay with being the big, huge powerhouse escort in this mission. I was okay with that. At no point did I ever want to just blow up the Lucari ship. I did want to actually kill Morden, though, because fuck that Ferengi.
Yes. I don't like him.
Like, how many times have I come across you and you just
Fuck me over every time.
there's a reason. There's a reason. I love the option to blow up that ship in the
Punch the
Jem'Hadar
Ferengi
mission.
in the face.
No, it's not that. The punch the Ferengi thing in the face, I was okay with, because the Ferengi howl, the upset howl is an annoying thing. You punch the Ferengi to shut it the hell up. Okay, I get that. In the Dominion arc, you get the option of letting a Ferengi ship go or blowing it up, because
Operation
it
Gamma.
it made you violate whatever treaty the Federation has with the Dominion. Yeah, I am wholly for blowing up that ship because it caused me to be acting illegally in this Dominion space. And here we are with this other Ferengi who time and again shows up, screws us over, and takes off. Yeah, now that he has this control of this station and he's going to try and defend it with mercenaries, no, that ship's not getting away. That ship's going to be the first thing to blow up. And when I find his escape pod, I will yank it open, pull him out of it, shove him into my airlock, and space his ass. Because he deserves it. The guy caused me nothing but trouble on whatever the hell that mining planet was, because he wasn't interested in anything. He had no information. Oh, and then when you presented him the information, oh, yeah, well, there's some problems in the mines you can go and take care of. And when you come back out, because you've exploded the mine, because there's a secret Tal Shiar base inside of it, he's like, what the hell did you do to my mine? It's like, oh yeah, you know what the hell was going on in that mine. Fuck you. And if you screw around with these people, I'll be back. You literally say that. You have the option to say, if you dick around with these people, if you don't treat these people with decency, I will be back. And the next time we meet him is on New Romulus. And he has a whole fucking warehouse where he's mislabeling shit and all this kind of stuff. Okay, I get it. Quark did that shit too. But it wasn't almost everything in the fucking, warehouse. Quark did it with a case here or a little supply there. It wasn't like these big, huge things that were helping an entire world become the world. He wasn't dicking out an entire planet from being colonized. That's what Morden was doing. And he got away because we had to fight the freaking Hirogen that he was using as bodyguards.
I think he shows up a couple of times in the Delta Rising arc as well, in the Delta Quadrant, and kind of fucks you over.
And then, of course, now he's taken over the remains of K-13 and claimed it as salvage, and it's like, okay, so you knew this thing was here. That was the whole reason you were trying to sell, quote-unquote, it to the Lakari. I get that. Okay, I understand your reasonings. But we found it, and you know it's Federation tech. You know the Federation is going to want their hands on it first. You can't claim salvage rights to it. Because you know it's Federation tech. And yeah, I might be a Klingon, but I'm currently in this alliance with the Federation, and I know for damn sure both the Klingons and the Federation will want to get on that station and use it. So you trying to protect it with a whole bunch of these mercenaries? Sorry. And because you've dicked me over how many times before? Yeah, no, see, this time I don't want to let you live.
And whatever happened to the treaty that's in place with the Ferengi and the Federation, that if there's a problem with a Ferengi guy doing things that are not exactly profitable for the Ferengi Alliance, they'll come and deal with their own shit.
I mean,
E.g.
how
the
is
Daemon's second in command beating the hell out of him and throwing him in the brig.
Well, I mean, you had this whole thing where you had the whole. I mean, he literally takes control of a Federation station. That's not going to make him any sort of profit at all. It's not. The Federation is literally going to come in and they're going to strong arm the Ferengi Alliance into making him give it up. That's not that's going to cost the Ferengi Alliance. There is no profit in that at all. But no, I showed up and ended that right then and there because I killed all of his mercenaries. But just magically couldn't kill him, even though I had disabled his engines and could have continued firing on the ship till he exploded. See, that's the thing about
Because
Ferengis.
plot.
That's the thing about Ferengis. Okay, we have this thing where we create a Ferengi and the Ferengi does Ferengi things. Okay, I get it. You create a Ferengi to do Ferengi things. You don't keep using the same Ferengi because eventually that Ferengi then becomes annoying because there's no redeeming character to that Ferengi because of them constantly doing Ferengi things all the time. You know, at least Quark had the redeeming quality of being personable and being somewhat cordial to all the people he was dicking around, even when it was Odo. There was a relationship between him and Odo that was frenemies, for lack of a better word. And the one would miss the other. And yeah, sure, they would play around all the time with how Quark was going to do something illegal. But at the end of the day, they they kind of did this waltz of I'm allowed to do certain things but not allowed to do others, and I know where my boundary is, and I can still be Ferengi, and yet I have a personality that kind of smooths things over. Not with this guy. Not with this guy. I'm sorry, it just isn't there. And thank you, Alex. It's Madron. I was close. And I never watched enough of Babylon 5 to know who any of those characters were. I just know that there was the one guy that had the giant freaking hair fan. That's about it.
It's not a show that I ever actually caught much of.
See, that's the thing. I don't know where to go to find it. And when I do find places that say they have it, it's usually behind a paywall, and I'm like, I'm already
These
subscribed to Netflix.
cool kids with their Netflix have probably got it.
No, I'm already subscribed to Netflix. Netflix was the first place I went. Not on Netflix. I went to Hulu behind a paywall. I went to YouTube behind a paywall. So yeah, at this point, Madron deserves to die. No ifs, ands, or buts, or if you're a Federation character or not. He's dicked around with you enough and not been personable, likable of a character enough to necessitate any sort of saving his life at all. Especially considering you meet a female Ferengi in the Gamma Quadrant, and within 45 minutes you're deciding whether or not to blow her up. And you can choose to blow her up.
Fire the torpedo for the good of the Federation. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of that one.
Could you imagine a Vulcan actually saying that line that way? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of that one. Fire.
Actually, no, don't fire. Let me do it. I'll be the one to press the button. I'm the captain. The responsibility lies with me. And then the next scene is the Admiral giving you a commendation medal and saying, "Oh yeah, the next time you do that, it'll be a court-martial."
But
Don't
yeah,
know
no,
why the
I
admiral speaks like this.
because he's not a normal admiral, he's a Federation badmiral, so he's going to change sides in a few episodes.
Ah, yes, there seem to be a lot of those bad rules.
So, yeah, why is that? Why is there constantly the trope of we never see Federation admirals unless they're doing something wrong? I mean,
Hey.
that even happened to James Kirk. The
You
dude,
legitimately make your way up the command tree and spend, what, 20 years being an ensign, and another 10 years in the lieutenant grades, and another 10 years being a commander, and then God knows how long being a captain before you get to admiral, and then you decide to be a dick.
I mean, even Kirk is an admiral, and here he is stealing a ship, gathering together his old crew, and going to the Genesis planet. A planet that is quarantined wholly off limits, period. No ifs, ands, or buts by the Federation. Yeah, he's breaking all the rules, just like every other admiral.
And then you never see the guy who's like going to chase him being promoted to admiral at any point, the guy with the riding crop.
Mm-hmm. God, the captain of the Excelsior. That looked more like a spanner than a riding crop. It's like, what the
Would
hell
you
are you
mind
holding?
telling me how you could have a red alert in a starbase?
Captain Kirk's there. He's stealing the Enterprise.
Like, yeah, let's just sack this guy and replace him with Sulu. What?
So Midnight, you around now?
Yeah, I'm sure there was another bit of feedback that I'd got. I can't seem to find it, or I must have been thinking of something else. Oh well, I'm sure if I find it, I'll include it next week. Oh well.
Tribbles and Ecstasy, eventually giving you your feedback back.
Yeah, I'm sure
Tribbles
there's something
and
else. Never mind.
Tribbles and Ecstasy. We'll read your comments eventually.
Ah. Yeah, today's just one of those days. Oh well.
Yes, for all those comments there from December, yes, I hope you had a good Christmas.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thank you very much for joining us. Questions for this week. What are your thoughts on season 12 for Star Trek Online? How have you been enjoying Star Trek Timelines? What do you think should be happening for year 2? Any other questions that you guys can think of?
What do you think of the NX refit, and do you think there should be Federation or Klingon only ships to come out in the next year?
Okay.
And of course, I type NX refist into the show notes.
Now, Okay. Well, if you'd like to join one of the Tribbles and Ecstasy fleets in Star Trek Online, it's Tribbles and Ecstasy Psi Fleet. And for the KDF, it's Targs and Ecstasy. And for Star Trek Timelines, it's just Tribbles and Ecstasy. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can send a message to Tribbles in XTC on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Star Trek Riser, and Player.me. You can also send an email to hosts@tribblesandXC.com. You can also leave us a message. You can go to speakpipe.com/tribblesandXTC, or you can leave a message using the widget on the official post on holosuitemedia.com. You can also find us in syndication on trekradio.net and subspace-radio.net every Wednesday. And you can also get us on iTunes and Google Play. Well, again, thank you all for joining us, and we will catch you next week. Take care, everyone.
See ya!
Bye!
And may the force be... Wait, wrong franchise.
Thanks for tuning in to tonight's broadcast of Tribbles and Ecstasy, a production of Holosuite Media. Tune in to our live show every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to check Holosuite Media, iTunes, and Stitcher Satellite Radio for our remastered shows and more. You can follow us on Twitter at TribblesInXTC, or if you have any questions or comments, please send an email to tribblesandEcstasy@gmail.com. Join us next week for another episode of Tribbles and Ecstasy, the only place where Tribbles and Klingons are friends.